Chapter 172. It was an ordinary car. Erickson was in the driver's seat, Alice was in the passenger seat, and Wuming and Erica were in the back. After a simple explanation of the situation, Erickson brought the three of them into the car. No one spoke in the car. Firstly, it was because of Marquis Woburn. Secondly, it was because of the oppressive atmosphere. Going back to the topic Alice had mentioned earlier, Woburn was here for the Gorgon Stone. After all, with Marquis Woburn's personality, it was very likely that he was here for the Gorgon Stone, which could attract the attention of the god of disobedience. But, even though it is very likely that Woburn is here for the Gorgon Stone, it is also possible that he is here for me, Wuming suddenly said. Wuming looked around at Erica and Alice and continued, "You have to know that even though I am a god slayer, I am still a god of disobedience." Erica and Alice instantly understood when Wuming said this. With Marquis Woburn's personality, he would definitely find a god of disobedience to hunt, but he wouldn't reject a god slayer of his own kind. If there was an existence that was both a god slayer and a god of disobedience, then it is very likely that Marquis Woburn will come looking for trouble with you, Erica said. Alice said with some concern, "Not to mention, the Gorgon Stone is still in your hands, Lord Wuming. Marquis Woburn will definitely not mind taking it for himself. He wants to fight me and deal with Athena at the same time." "What an energetic old man," Wuming said with some sarcasm. Erickson still maintained his duties as the driver and didn't say a word. It seemed that Erickson was still a little afraid of Wuming. However, there was nothing that could be done about it. After all, in the eyes of the Sage Council of Greenwich, who specialized in the study of gods' layers, all gods' layers were terrifying. In any case, the enemy is already here. I'm afraid we have no choice but to fight. Erica sighed. Alice, on the other hand, seemed a little worried. Wuming said, "Don't worry, Alice. I will fight with Marquis Woburn within my barrier. It won't affect the surrounding cities." Alice paused for a moment, then nodded. Although Wuming said so, the worry in Alice's eyes was still there. Every time she looked at Wuming, the worry in her eyes deepened. Because of the arrival of Marquis Wuming, Erica and Wuming decided not to go to Alice's house. At the request of Wuming, Erickson stopped the car by the roadside. Wuming and Erica got out of the car. Alice still looked worriedly at Wuming and Erica. "Please be extremely careful. If possible, please do not cross swords with Marquis Woburn. Please use words to resolve the issue." Although Wuming didn't want to complain, Wuming still had to say it in his heart. Is it possible for the Godslayer to resolve the issue with words? Don't worry. With me, Erica Blantley, who has inherited the Diable Dragon, my master will have nothing to worry about, Erica said as she patted her chest. Of course, this was only if she could guarantee that she wouldn't be at a disadvantage when talking with Marquis Woburn. Alice nodded and said, "If it's Miss Erica, I can be a little more assured. Again, please be extremely careful." After that, Erickson sped away from the place even faster than before. "Am I that scary?" Wuming pointed at himself and said. "You're the Demon King. It's natural for Miss Erica to be afraid of you." Erica giggled and covered her mouth. Wuming shrugged helplessly. Then, the two of them came to a large building. This was the exclusive residence that the Sage Parliament of Greenwich had built for Marquis Woburn after learning that he was coming. Wuming and Erica looked at the roof and looked at each other. This should be the address that Erickson provided for Marquis Woburn. Wuming sighed. Speaking of which, the Sage Council sure has a lot of free time on their hands. They actually built such an exclusive residence for the Godslayer that's about to arrive. It's so grand that I feel bad about destroying it, Wuming continued. Erica looked at Wuming helplessly and said, "That's because Marquis Woburn is a veteran Godslayer who has been famous for a long time. Even the Sage Parliament of Greenwich, which specializes in investigating Godslayers, doesn't know the number of his powers and the specific abilities of his powers. Because the Sage Parliament of Greenwich was established in the middle of the 19th century, and Marquis Woburn killed a Godslayer in the early 18th century, even the Sage Parliament, which specialized in Godslayers, didn't know about Marquis Woburn's powers. You must be careful, my lord. Don't worry. Even so, I don't think I can lose. After all, I'm the master of the Red Devil, Diable Rouge, Wu Ming joked. As expected of my lord. This is a master worthy of my service. The corners of Erica's mouth curled up, revealing a brilliant smile. Then, let's go. Let's meet this old man. With that, Wu Ming and Erica stepped into the large building. At the top of the building, a tall and thin old man in a black trench coat was sitting on a throne. A magic array was engraved in the center of the hall, and a girl with long chestnut-colored hair and white ceremonial robes knelt in the center of the magic array. Beside Marquis Warband stood a mage who looked like a corpse and whose face couldn't be seen clearly. He held a crystal ball in his hand and placed it in front of Marquis Warband. Looking at the crystal ball in front of him, Marquis Warband's lips curled up into a smile. His emerald-like vertical pupils exuded a wolf-like gaze. Marquis Warband looked at the Caucasian girl with a silver-white ponytail who was half-kneeling with her head lowered. The young girl was wearing a black military uniform with yellow edges. She had a blue-gray striped shawl draped over her shoulders, a matching short skirt, white knee-high socks, and brown high boots. Her silver-white hair was tied into a high ponytail with a thin blue thread. The young girl seemed to be full of exotic charm. Now is the time to show your strength. Don't disappoint me, Liliana Kranikar. Liliana lowered her head even more and said, Yes, master. I won't disappoint my lord. With that, the girl called Liliana left. It seemed like she was going to stop Wu Ming and Erica. Marquis Warband looked at the crystal ball with joy and said, Let me see how you, the god of disobedience and the god slayer, can break through my servant. Let's use your strength to prove whether or not I need this witch. With that, Marquis Warband's wolf-like green eyes looked at the girl in ceremonial robes kneeling in the center of the magic array. God, the girl prayed. Chapter 173. As soon as they walked into the building, Wu Ming and Erica were attacked by a large number of undead. After slashing the last undead with Reinhardt, Erica turned to Wu Ming, who had dealt with some of the undead and was standing by the side, watching her on the phone. After seeing Erica destroy the last undead, Wu Ming hung up the phone. Thank you for your hard work, Erica. Wu Ming said. It's my honor to clear the way for Master. Erica said with a charming smile. That may be the case, but these undead are all at the level of Grand Knights. Nominally, they are the strongest fighting force below the God Slayer. Wu Ming was right. Each of these materialized undead had the power of a Great Knight, which was the highest level below the Godslayer. Erica, who was only 16 years old, had reached the Great Knight level at this moment. Because of her loyalty to Wu Ming, she received the title of Red Devil. The reason why she was said to be the strongest combat power below the Godslayer was that there was now an additional level, Paladin. The former Red Demon, Diable Rouge, Erica's uncle, Paul Brantley, who fought against the Black Prince Yerek with Alice, was promoted to a paladin because of his deeds of fighting against the God Slayer. Because Paul's level had reached the highest Great Knight level, and above that was the God Slayer. Therefore, Greenwich's Sage Council updated a new level, Paladin. It could be said that the level of Paladin was specially set up for Paul. As for who else would resist the God Slayer in the future, maybe they would also be promoted to Paladin. Because the theorem that humans could not defeat the Godslayer had been deeply rooted in people's hearts, the level of Paladin was set up for those who were above Great Knight, but not the Godslayer. Erica, who was only 16 years old, was able to reach the level of Great Knight. Coupled with her excellent character, it could be seen how good Erica was as a knight. Of course, but it would be better if you leave these people to me, Wu Ming. I, Erica Brantley, will clear everything for my master. At this moment, Erica was like a proud lioness, full of pride. Yes, next time. I'm in a hurry now. I can't wait to see this old man. Afterward, Wu Ming and Erica walked up the stairs leading to a higher floor. Was that a call from Salvatore just now? Erica asked Wu Ming as they hurried along. Well, he's the only one who can know my phone number and call me. Wu Ming looked a little tired at the moment and sighed. After being knocked unconscious by Wu Ming, Salvatore took almost 3 days to wake up. The first thing Salvatore did after waking up was to call Wu Ming. At this time, Wu Ming came to Marquis Wu Ming's building, so the scene of Erica cleaning up the undead appeared. That guy said something like, "You must be looking for trouble with old Master Warband now, so don't die. That old man is quite difficult to deal with, my good friend Wu Ming. Speaking of which, when did I become his best friend?" Wu Ming smiled calmly. It was obvious that he felt helpless towards this fellow. Erica smiled slightly, showing a charming smile at the corner of her mouth. "Salvatore must have regarded you as a strong opponent. You should know that Salvatore is an idiot in all aspects except swordsmanship. Since he can remember your name, Wu Ming, it means that he has regarded you as a strong opponent." In fact, Erica was right. Salvatore was knocked unconscious in a few moves. Although there was a certain degree of luck and the other party was not familiar with Wu Ming's ability, Salvatore thought that a loss was a loss. As a result, Salvatore remembered Wu Ming. I wanted to ask him if he knew about Marquis Warband's authority. As a result, this guy said, "How can I remember this kind of thing? Just hit him." I don't know what to say. Wu Ming sighed again. "I'm also a fool for counting on that idiot," Erica smiled. "Wu Ming is more like a human than the god of disobedience and the god slayer." Wu Ming could not help but think of his previous life. If Wu Ming was not picked up by the old dean, who knows what he would have become now? He might become even weirder because no one took care of him, and he would look down on humans completely. Because of this, Wu Ming respected the old man who had passed away the most. Wu Ming was indeed a problematic child. Wu Ming could not despise humans now, thanks to the people Wu Ming met. Wu Ming's second most respected person and his skills mentor, Wu Ming was naturally very important to Wu Ming. Ireland, Britain, Uruk, Nasalik, France, and Toki City, Japan. Wu Ming recalled the lands he had experienced and the various people he had met. Thinking of this, Wu Ming was in a much better mood. Even the desire to fight with Marquis Warband had lessened a lot. "That's because I have a bond." Looking at Wu Ming, who was smiling particularly brightly, Erica was also stunned for a moment. Then, she smiled as well. "Then, can I also be a part of it?" Wu Ming smiled and did not answer. Erica, on the other hand, saw the answer in Wu Ming's eyes. For some reason, the other party did not stop them at all. Wu Ming and Erica did not encounter any enemies along the way. In the end, when Wu Ming and Erica were about to reach the top, a young girl walked out of the darkness. "So it's you, Lily." It seemed to be someone Erica knew. Seeing that she had taken out a silver military knife, Wu Ming did not say anything and continued to walk to the top. "I'll leave it to you, Erica." "Yes, my lord." Erica watched Wu Ming leave before looking at Liliana. "It's really fate to meet you here. I thought the rumors that you went to Marquis Warband's place were false." Liliana looked at Erica with a serious expression. Holding the silver military knife in her hand, she said, "There's no need to catch up. I've received Marquis Warband's order to stop you. Although I can't stop the advance of the King of Disobedience, I can stop your advance." As she spoke, Liliana's military knife began to glow. "Is that so? Then let's try it." Erica held the thin sword and placed it in front of her. Then, she continued. "It's time for a duel, Lionheart, Coeur de Lion. My wings, become the steel of the phantom blade, Silver Master Craftsman, Il Maestro, grant me strength." As two prodigies of two Italian magic societies and the attendants of two kings, Erica and Liliana began to fight for their respective masters. At the top was an empty hall. In the center of the hall was a complicated and precise magic array. In the center sat a young girl with long chestnut-colored hair and ceremonial robes. In the center of the hall, a thin but shrewd old man sat there. Wu Ming slowly walked to this floor as if he was taking a leisurely stroll. In the darkness, Marquis Warband's green vertical pupils exuded a cunning gaze. His gaze was fixed on Wu Ming. Wu Ming looked at Warband. Neither of them spoke. The atmosphere began to become tense. Only the chestnut-haired girl trembled under the pressure of the two kings. Chapter 174. After about 10 minutes of stalemate, Marquis Warban spoke first. I didn't expect the god of disobedience to become a god slayer. This is something I have never encountered in the past 300 years. Warban's voice sounded a bit old. He was an old man with a story, but Wuming didn't care about that. Now I'm a god slayer. Let's not talk about the identity of the god of disobedience. Warban, you came to England to find me, right? Wuming crossed his arms in front of his chest with a calm expression and a smile on his face. Of course, otherwise, I wouldn't have brought this witch all the way from Japan to England. I am very interested in the Gorgon stone and the fact that you are a god slayer, but I didn't expect you to come to me on your own accord. However, this saves me a lot of effort. The green light in Marquis Warban's eyes shone even more brightly. Warban said and looked at the girl in the center of the magic formation. Wuming also looked at the witch. Generally speaking, the Yuan witch was the descendant of the god ancestor. Those girls would be given the highest level of Yuan witch, and generally, they would have the special skill spirit vision. Alice, who possessed spirit vision, was also known as the witch concubine. However, Alice was more like the witch Yuan, an extension of the witch concubine. These magi all relied on their own cultivation to obtain their spirit vision, so their spirit vision was much more powerful than those who were born magi. Just like Alice could see the future for a long time, the witch kneeling in the magic formation couldn't see the future too far away like Alice. But this kind of witch had other functions, such as summoning the god of disobedience. Do you want this witch to use Gorgon stone to summon the god of disobedience? Wuming continued, judging from the level of this magic formation and the number of people who can summon the god of disobedience. Once the summoning ritual is successful, this witch's life will be gone. Wuming's words caused Miss Witch, who was inside the magic array, to shudder. However, Wuming noticed her shudder. It seems that our Marquis Warban did not inform this young lady of the consequences. Of course. Marquis Warban stood up and continued, it's just a human. If it's broken, we can just replace it. The words of the Marquis caused Witch Yuan's heart to sink. She no longer had any hope of being rescued. After all, there were two demon kings here. Humph. Is that so, Wuming? Looks like you can't understand the meaning of human existence after becoming a god slayer, Wuming said sarcastically. Then, I'll take back my words. Wuming walked towards Miss Witch. Today, I'll fight you as the god of disobedience, Warban. Wuming stood in front of Miss Witch, protecting her. Then, Wuming looked at Wuming. Let me once again carry out my identity as the god of disobedience and protect the humans. Then, as the god slayer, I'll kill you who protects the humans. At this moment, both the god of disobedience and the god slayer burst forth with their magic power. A massive pillar of magic power materialized above Wuming and Warban, breaking through the ceiling. Miss Witch recovered from her despair and looked at the god of disobedience and the god slayer standing in front of her with a trace of doubt in her eyes. The undead king's nest of darkness, the land of the opposite sex, the home of absolute evil. Wuming took out the staff of Anziurgan from the golden ripples and began to chant an incantation. Marquis Warban looked at Wuming with interest and did not choose to stop him. Show thy 10-layered barrier, and seize the enemy who dares to provoke me. Anziurgan slammed the staff of Anziurgan on the ground. In an instant, Wuming and Warban's vision turned white. When his eyes took in the scenery once more, Marquis Warban found himself on a sparkling, boundless ice plain. Oh, this is interesting, really interesting. The god of disobedience. Marquis Warban became excited and began to laugh loudly. Suddenly, a piercing cold wind began to blow. This feeling. I haven't felt this feeling of death for a long time. Ha 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 ha. Feeling the cold wind gradually blowing around him, Marquis Warban laughed happily. It was obvious that the cold wind could cause harm to him. For the bored Marquis Warban, that was exactly what he was looking for. Wuming looked at Warban, who was covered in a layer of frost, but he did not show any complacency. As the one who controlled the inherent barrier, Nasric's fifth ice layer appeared in front of Nasric. Although the god's layers had extremely terrifying magic resistance, the essence of the inherent enchantment was a secret technique that allowed the spiritual world to invade the real world and drag the people around it into the spiritual world. Therefore, the inherent enchantment was effective even against the god's layers. Of course, in the eyes of Miko, Wuming and Warband disappeared in an instant. The fifth layer of Nazalic had a passive effect that continuously froze the intruder, and that effect ignored the enemy's defense. When the Crusade team invaded Nazalic, because they had items that could resist this effect, or they relied on their level to directly pass the fifth layer did not stop many enemies. However, this didn't mean that the fifth level of Nazalic and the other areas of Nazalic were weak. The reason why a game was because it was challenging. As a hidden dungeon, it was extremely difficult to clear Nazalic. In addition, Nazalic was transformed into a guild encampment by the current members of Anziwergong, and its performance was enhanced a lot. The reason why the players were able to break through Nazalic was that the enemy had a large number of people, and the second reason was that the enemy had items that could resist the field effect. One must know that the game Yggdrasil was famous for its high degree of freedom, which led to many bug-level items and skills being countered by even more bug-like items and skills. That was why the game Yggdrasil attracted the players with such a high degree of freedom. However, many of the bug-level effects in Nazalic had become great weapons in other worlds without game items. The eternal frozen wind that blew on the ice field was such a negative bug. In short, Marquis Warband couldn't stand the damage. However, for the God Slayer's physique, that alone could not kill him. Come on. The unknown god of disobedience. Let me see your power. Marquis Warband roared and turned into a giant werewolf. Some of his hair fell from his body, and he turned into a 2-meter-tall gray wolf with rat fur. Awoo! The giant wolves rushed toward Wuming, and their greedy mouths exuded a foul stench. Wuming did not even look at them. He gently raised the staff of Anziwergong, and countless white flames instantly erupted on the giant wolves. In just a flash, Wuming's wolves were all burned to death by Wuming's flames. Chapter 175. What? Marquis Woban was very surprised. He knew that Roland was not someone to be messed with, so he specifically summoned those high-level Grand Knights, but Roland was able to destroy them all in an instant. What kind of magic is this? Marquis Woban roared from the giant werewolf. A magic trick that works is a good magic trick. Wuming did not answer Marquis Woban's question. Instead, he smiled a little sarcastically. The staff of Anziwergong had an automatic attack function, and it was comparable to a world-class item with a large number of high-level spells. If the staff of Anziwergong didn't have a passive skill like the World's Blessing, it could be said to be a world-class item. Furthermore, the magic within the staff of Anziwergong that had been upgraded to a relic had also been upgraded, becoming an existence that could harm the gods. Wuming took the initiative to activate the staff of Anziwergong's skill, Holy Fire, which was a 9th-tier spell that dealt great damage to targets with negative justice value. Woban's giant werewolves did not look like they had positive justice value. Naturally, those werewolves were instantly killed. You're right, this is more interesting. Slowly, rain clouds began to gather in the sky within the inherent boundary. Within a few breaths, the rain clouds had completely gathered. Wuming could not help but frown. Nazaric's barrier was good, but it was too similar to the real world. So, how about this? Woban's body began to burst out a large amount of curse power, and dark purple lightning condensed in his mouth. With a howl, Wuming spat out the purple lightning from his mouth, and a huge purple lightning pillar rushed toward Wuming. The emerald on the staff of Anziwergong flickered, and a large number of green vines broke out of the ice and formed a super thick wooden shield in front of Wuming. Boom! Wuming's figure was buried by a large amount of dust caused by the impact of the lightning and the wooden shield. Wuming's figure instantly appeared on the other side of the smoke. It seems that using magic is too much of a bully for an old man like you who doesn't know magic. Do you need me to fight you without using magic? Wuming mocked. Humph. Stop joking. Even if your magic has reached the realm of gods, it can't do any significant damage to me. You're just saying that because you're at your wit's end. Marquis Oban roared. Tisk, Wuming spat unhappily. In fact, Marquis Wuming was right. Although the magic that Wuming had learned was useful, it was not very useful on the Godslayer who had extremely high resistance to curses. It was the same for the Loon runes. Although Silent Wonder could release the magic god's seal of the first rune, Silent Wonder did not think that the Grade A noble phantasm would be able to cause much damage to Marquis Warban. At the very least, he would be able to tear off a layer of Warban's skin. In that case, I'll use this sword. After saying that, Wuming put the staff of Ain's Urgong back into the golden ripple that suddenly appeared, and then took out a silver-white long sword from it. X-Silver, that's the name of this sword. Wuming held the holy sword and said to Wuming. X-Silver. This is X-Silver. Marquis Oban was surprised. Wuming's eyes lit up. Does Marquis Oban also know about this sword? Marquis Oban said with some excitement, of course, it would be strange if I didn't know about this sword. I didn't expect the 7th Godslayer to be a British silver dragon. The rain clouds in the sky became denser, and the power of lightning contained in them became more powerful. Ha 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 ha. This trip is really worth it. Marquis Oban laughed and turned back into a human from his werewolf form. The strongest and most mysterious knight of the Knights of the Round Table, King Arthur's most trusted man, one of the only 2 beliefs of the Knights of the Round Table, the noble knight who incarnated into the legendary British silver dragon, Vilo Thranst. Marquis Oban was a little excited. Such a powerful enemy must be able to satisfy his boredom. When the world judged Wuming as the god of disobedience, Wuming thought of such a result. His own mythology was probably the evolution of what happened to him in the history of the M-shaped moon. And the mythology of the world of the Godslayers was made up by people, so it was not surprising that a god had several divine names, and even a god in other pantheons. Holding the X-Silver in both hands, Wuming said with a smile full of fighting spirit on his face, it doesn't feel good to be known by the later generations, but, Marquis Oban, come and fight me. Wuming's ruby-like eyes flickered. Come, Vilo Thranst. Marquis Oban roared angrily, and his body began to change. This time, the transformation was different from before, as dragon scales began to grow all over his body. Soon, Marquis Oban's transformation was complete, and what appeared in front of Wuming was a giant black dragon with ferocious dragon scales all over its body. Wuming estimated that the black dragon was about 60 meters long without its wings. I haven't slain a dragon before, you should feel honored, Oban. So, Wuming directly released his noble artifact. The stars hidden in the world. The X-Silver sword began to emit a white light, and the black dragon roared angrily, flapping its wings and rushing towards Wuming. The holy sword that can wipe out all evil. Looking at the charging Oban, Wuming held the sword with both hands. Cracks appeared on the sword, and an even more dazzling golden light burst out from it. Don't cover your light anymore. The X-Silver sword was completely shattered, and a dazzling golden sword of light appeared. It kept floating, and the silver sword fragments attached to the golden sword of light. The black underworld flames that the black dragon spewed out were all blocked by the Aurora Pillar. Shine! The sword of light expanded and soared into the sky. The black dragon rushed in front of Wuming, and swung its giant dragon claw with a dense aura of death. Silver meteor. Roar, roar, roar. The black dragon let out a miserable roar. Instantly, dazzling white starlight filled the 5th level, and it did not stop for a long time. In the outside world, Erica and Liliana were constantly fighting, and their swords were flying everywhere. However, one was flying in the sky, while the other was running on the ground. But anyone with a discerning eye could see that Erica was slightly at a disadvantage. Erica suddenly jumped back, and after a short pause, she said, as expected of you, Lily. Liliana had the bloodline of the witch, and she had learned the long-lost, difficult flying magic, which was why she could fly in the sky. Don't talk nonsense. This is a battlefield. Liliana was a bit irritable. Erica continued, logically speaking, you shouldn't be the kind of person who would accept a brutal demon king like Marquis Oban. Liliana did not say anything. Instead, she looked at Erica with an irritated gaze. Could it be? Erica seemed to have thought of something, and she continued, because I'm loyal to Wuming, your grandfather offered you to Marquis Oban out of jealousy? TSK, Liliana said unhappily, looking at Erica with an ugly expression. Talk is useless. Erica Browntree, keep fighting. Having said that, Liliana dashed toward Erica in a flash. Please wait a moment. Suddenly, an old but rather robust voice sounded. Chapter 176. Please wait a moment. An old and rather robust voice sounded. A white-haired old man in a butler's uniform appeared between Erica and Liliana. Mr. Sebastian? Why are you here? Erica asked in surprise. Erica, who had been with Wuming, naturally knew that her master didn't contact Sebastian, so she was surprised by his sudden appearance. Who are you? Liliana flew back to the ceiling and looked at the old man who appeared silently between her and Erica. I'm Sebastian Dean, the butler of Lord Wuming. Nice to meet you. Sebastian bowed to Liliana and then looked at Erica. Miss Erica, I'm here to support you on the orders of Lord Wuming. Of course, this doesn't mean that Lord Wuming doesn't believe in your abilities. It's just that Lord Wuming chose to send me out as a precaution. After all, this was the temporary lair of the enemy's godslayers, so it was inevitable that accidents would happen. That was why Wuming had Sebastian come to England from Italy. As for why Erica didn't see Wuming contacting Sebastian, it was because everyone in Nazalek had the inherent ability to communicate mentally. Wuming naturally contacted Sebastian without Erica knowing. Then, Sebastian said to the two of them, how about the two of you stop fighting for the time being? With your strength, both of you will only suffer in the end. Even if you say so, I, Liliana Kranikar, won't back down so easily. As a noble knight, Liliana wouldn't back down even if she knew the outcome of the battle. I can't pretend that I didn't hear that, Mr. Sebastian. I have a secret technique to deal with Lily. Erica was dissatisfied with Sebastian's words, but after all, Sebastian didn't know Erica well. Erica could win on her own. After all, Erica had something on Sebastian. The two girls retorted, unwilling to be outdone. Please calm down, Miss Erica, Miss Liliana. The battle between Lord Wuming and Marquis Warban is over. Sebastian calmly said something that couldn't be calmed down. The two girls were shocked. Then, they hurriedly rushed to the top floor. Sebastian, on the other hand, began to walk downstairs. There's nothing else for me to do. Should I go back to Italy first or stay in England for a while? Sebastian rubbed his chin. I remember there was a shop selling biscuits that were very popular on the way here. Should I go and try it? Sebastian's figure gradually disappeared into the corridor as he spoke. At the top floor of the building, Wanli Furu was sitting in the center of the magic circle in fear. God, please protect me. Wanli Guyoli closed his eyes and clenched his fists, praying non-stop. Guyoli did not look at Marquis Warban, who was sitting on the throne and looking at the crystal ball beside him. She knew how terrifying the Godslayers were, not to mention that the one on the throne was the most senior and most brutal of the 7 Godslayers she had met 4 years ago. Originally, Guyoli had been prepared to sacrifice himself before the ceremony, but Marquis Oban's servant of death's cage shattered his resolve. That was the ability to turn the humans, divine beasts, demons, and artificial creatures with souls they had killed into living corpses. In other words, the living dead would be preserved in the world and become absolutely loyal servants. In this way, even if Juan Ligugu Yushur were to sacrifice himself, he wouldn't be able to avoid being stabbed by Marquis Oban before committing suicide. In the end, he would still become Marquis Oban's servant. Thus, as if he had accepted his fate, Yoritani accepted Marquis Warban's request and accepted the fate of being the only supporter of the ritual to summon the god of disobedience. Seeing Miss Liliana being sent out by Marquis Warban, Juan Ligugu knew that the other king had arrived. It seems like the summoning god relic is in the king's hands. Wanligiguyoli thought to herself. She then shook her head. This had nothing to do with a witch like her who had no right to speak. At most, she would interact with the king later. Soon, the other king arrived before Marquis Warban. Looks like a young king. Wanligiguyoli stopped looking after glancing at the king. One had to know that kings were brutal. Perhaps the king would punish him for looking at the king a few more times. While the two kings were talking, Wanligiguyoli heard that Liliana had been killed by the invading king. Miss Liliana, the kind-hearted Wanligiguyoli, was a little sad. After all, the king had helped him 4 years ago. Do I look like a brutal person to you, Marquis Warban? However, the new king said. Is Miss Liliana all right? Wanligiguyoli was secretly relieved when he thought about this. Subsequently, the intense battle that Wanligiguyoli expected did not happen. Subsequently, the new king told Wanligiguyoli the truth that he would die after summoning the god of disobedience alone. Wanligiguyoli was shocked. After all, Marquis Warban did not tell him about this. Wanligiguyoli had lost all hope. He would die no matter what in front of the two kings. And yet, the new king was standing in front of him. Then, I take back what I said earlier. Today, I'll fight you as the god of disobedience, Warban. The god of disobedience? Wanligiguyoli seemed to have heard something incredible. Let me carry out my identity as the god of disobedience again. I'll protect the humans and this witch. Protect me? Wanligiguyoli was doubtful. She could not believe that the Devil King, the God Slayer, would protect a witch like her. After the two kings unleashed their powerful devil powers, the new king took out a strange dark scepter. The moment he chanted an incantation, the two kings seemed to have been sucked into something and disappeared into thin air. Wanligiguyoli did not think of running away. Even if she did not know where she would go. Moreover, the Devil King would definitely catch her again. The two kings must be fighting in some unknown place. For some reason, Wanligiguyoli hoped that the new king would win more than Marquis Warban. Perhaps it was because of the words, "Protect this witch," Wanligiguyoli thought. God, please protect me, protect me. Then, Wanligiguyoli returned to the state where she clasped her hands and closed her eyes in prayer. However, compared to the previous prayers to the gods, this prayer was more specific. Darkness shrouded the hall. Only the ritual fire was left, shining in the darkness, protecting the witch who was praying to the gods. Chapter 177. Erica and Liliana ran to the top floor and saw that the hall was not damaged at all, if the ceiling was missing. Wuming was currently carrying 1,000-mile Furu in a princess carry. Erica and Liliana were shocked by the fact that the hall wasn't damaged much. Seeing Erica and Liliana's arrival, Wuming quickly smiled and greeted them. Oh, I won. Erica breathed a sigh of relief, while Liliana had an ugly expression on her face. Where did Marquis Woban go, and why did Wanli Furu faint? It all started a few minutes ago. Wuming injured Marquis Woban, who turned into a black dragon, with his noble phantasm, X-Silver Meteor. No, it should be said that he killed him once. Meteor Silver Radiance, X-Silver Meteor, Level, EX Type, Evil Noble Phantasm Distance. Maximum Catch? This was a treasure created by the planet's suppression. X-Silver Meteor, which was truly freed from the restriction, had the effect of judging the enemy as evil. As long as the enemy was the master's enemy, the person who must be defeated, and so on, the holy sword would mark it with the evil attribute. The target of the judgment was both a person and an object, and even concepts such as space and time could be included in the judgment. Wuming didn't even need to mark Marquis Woban with the evil attribute. Marquis Woban, who didn't take human life seriously, had already been judged as evil by X-Silver Meteor. Wuming himself didn't slay a dragon, and X-Silver didn't have a similar legend, so it couldn't cause additional damage to the dragon. However, Wuming had X-Silver Meteor's judgment, coupled with Wuming's large-scale magic supply, he was able to kill Woban. One should know that the Relic X Silver Meteor was one of Wu Ming's trump cards. If it could not defeat the God Slayer, it would be a disgrace to the Sacred Sword X Silver. However, Wu Ming's barrier, Nazalik's fifth layer, was completely destroyed by Wu Ming's noble phantasm. Marquis Wu Ming seemed to have the power of resurrection. The moment the fixed boundary was broken, Marquis Wu Ming released a powerful burst of mana. Then, Marquis Wu Ming and Marquis Wu Ming returned to the hall. As soon as they met, Marquis Warban clutched his heart weakly. Damn it. You win this time, remember this. Villo there answered. With that, Marquis Warban turned into a strong gust of wind and left the hall without a ceiling. Phew. Wu Ming let out a long sigh and returned the X Silver to the golden ripple. In fact, as the most senior Godslayer, if Marquis Waban had not gotten addicted to the fight, he would have been able to fight Wu Ming dozens of times, regardless of the final outcome. After Marquis Wu Ming was infected by the God Slayer's fighting frenzy, he directly used his body to resist Wu Ming's noble phantasm. The result was failure and even death. That also proved that the God Slayers were a group of problematic children. That was why humans could not ignore the God Slayers and serve them as kings. After Marquis Wu Ming left, Wu Ming looked at Wanli Gu Yoli in the center of the magic circle. As a result, he found that Wanli Gu Yoli had fainted. It seemed that when Wu Ming broke the fixed boundary, a small part of the residual power spread to Wanli Gu Yoli, who was kneeling in the magic circle, and knocked him out. Is it my fault again? Wu Ming scratched the back of his head and said awkwardly. Ever since he became a God Slayer, he liked fighting more and more, especially when it was easy to use too much power in battle. For example, Silent Wonder could weaken the magic attack of the Meteor Silver Splendor when it was about to break through his inherent barrier. That way, he might be able to ensure that Gu Yoli, who was outside, would not be knocked unconscious by the shockwaves. However, Wu Ming, who was in the mood to fight, did not care about that. Instead, he increased the power of X Silver Meteor. Naturally, Wanli Gu Yoli was knocked out. Fortunately, we managed to control it at the last moment. Not just Miss Witch, even Erica and the others in this building would have been affected. Wu Ming wiped the non-existent cold sweat off his forehead. It seemed that the God Slayer was the Demon King for some reason. Wu Ming walked to Wanli Gu Yoli's side and began to check if he had something on his hand. Then, Wu Ming drew runes out of thin air, and several Lune runes representing healing, cleansing, and holy attached to Wanli Gu Yoli's body. Then, Wu Ming put one hand under Wanli Gu Yoli's armpit and the other hand under Wanli Gu Yoli's legs, and picked him up in a princess carry. At this time, Erica and Liliana arrived just in time. This was the scene that Erica and Liliana had seen just now. Neither of the two girls spoke, which made Wu Ming feel awkward. At this moment, for some reason, Wu Ming felt that he was a pervert who wanted to hold the unconscious girl in his arms. In order to avoid misunderstanding between the two girls, Wu Ming said with a smile, "Yo, I won." Outside the building, Erickson, who was using the telescopic magic, stopped the magic and called Alice. "Miss Alice, it seems that Lord Wu Ming won." After sending Alice home, Erickson left and asked Erickson to come here to observe and report the result to Alice. Erickson, on the other hand, could not refuse his master's request. After setting up more barriers, Erickson unhurriedly came to a commanding height near the building, where he observed the abnormality of the building with a telescope. "Really? Thank you, Erickson. Come back first." Alice's unique sweet voice came from the other end of the phone, but it was a little weak. "Yes, Miss Alice." After that, Erickson quickly left the place as if he was fleeing. It seemed that the two God Slayers here really frightened Erickson. Although Erickson was shocked that the battle between the two kings did not destroy the surroundings, even the building that had been turned into a battlefield, he would never be stingy with his speed when it was time to leave. In a luxurious aristocratic house, in a gorgeous room, Alice sat on the bed in her pajamas with a sickly flush on her face. Alice weakly placed the phone on the small table beside her and laid down on the bed. Is the side effect of using spirit vision again? Alice covered herself with the quilt and closed her eyes in pain. Please come quickly, Lord Wuming. Chapter 178. The next day, the staff of the Greenwich Sage Parliament started to get busy again. Wuming's arrival drove Marquis Oban away. Although there was no large-scale damage, the building built for Marquis Oban could no longer be used. Putting aside the fierce fight between Erica and Liliana in the building, the aftermath of Silent Wonder's noble phantasm had destroyed the supporting beams of the building. Fortunately, Silent Wonder had used the rune that she used to stabilize the building in time when she fought Berserker, the heroic spirit materialized by the rank card. Otherwise, the building would have disappeared on the same day. By the way, because Wuming and Marquis Oban did not cause much damage, and Marquis Oban's building was not in a bustling area, the Greenwich Sage Parliament simply used the building's shoddy construction as a cover and successfully covered it up without causing a commotion. In addition to covering up the truth, the Greenwich Sage Parliament also had to prepare a residence for the remaining Godslayer, namely Wuming. If the king were to casually stay in a hotel, not to mention whether Wuming would mind, if the other Godslayers found out, the Greenwich Sage Parliament would probably cease to exist. Marquis Oban did not care. After all, he had just been injured after the fight with Wuming. However, Bishop Luo Hao from the east would definitely come knocking on his door. Among the Godslayers, the two most arrogant Godslayers were Marquis Oban and Bishop Luo Hao, who were the two most senior Godslayers. Therefore, the Greenwich Sage Parliament started to get busy again building a residence for Wuming. After that, Wuming said, "I'll just stay at Alice's place." Everyone was stunned. Under the strange gazes of almost all the magicians, Wuming and Erica moved to Alice's place with Gu Yoli. At a certain moment, Wuming sat peacefully on the sofa of a mansion, drinking a cup of tea. Erickson stood behind Wuming in a panic. After a moment, Wuming spoke. "Are you that worried about me, Miss Erickson?" Wuming turned his head and glanced at Erickson, who was in a suit. How could that be? Your Majesty, I have no intention of belittling you." Erickson hurriedly knelt down on one knee. Wuming sighed helplessly. "I won't do anything to Alice. Don't worry." Wuming said so because a few days ago, Wuming directly entered Alice's boudoir while Erickson was weeping in despair and fear. After that, Wuming directly entered Alice's boudoir, closed the door and stayed there for a few hours. When a man who could be said to be the most powerful man and a very beautiful woman stayed in the same room for a few hours, the result was naturally obvious. Somehow, the news leaked, and almost the entire magic world knew that Wuming, the seventh God Slayer, the King of Disobedience, and Princess Alice, the daughter of Duke Godding and the White Witch, were married. That lord is really swift and decisive. This was the general impression that all the magicians had of Wuming, the God Slayer. But in fact, Wuming entered Alice's room only to protect her. Of course, in order to increase efficiency, Wuming chose not to protect her forehead this time, but to deepen their relationship more intimately. Of course, this was also because Alice didn't reject it, so Silent Wonder acted this way. And Erica, who knew that this was a serious matter, didn't stop Wuming. However, she didn't look too happy. After all, there was no saying that the cow that came first would eat the grass later. Ahem. Back to the topic, after Wuming protected Alice for a long time and kissed Wuming for a long time, Alice's cheeks were abnormally red, and then Alice fell asleep because her body received a lot of energy. So, Wuming sat by Alice's bed, took out the Nameless Spellbook from Dragonist, and read it. After all, the spells in the Nameless Spellbook were endless. Even Wuming, as its owner, couldn't master all of them. He could only search for a certain spell when he needed it. In this way, Wuming stayed in Alice's room for a few hours, which led to the wrong relationship between Wuming and Alice being spread all over the magic world. Thinking of Alice's flushed face when she woke up a few hours later, Wuming's lips curled up into a smile. It could be said that it was precisely because Alice fell asleep while kissing and blushed that Erickson was more convinced of their relationship. Later, on the grounds that, although the two of you are close, it's still inappropriate to do things during the day, she was actually afraid that her master would be taken advantage of again, so she stayed beside Wuming to supervise him. Seeing Erikson hurriedly kneeling on one knee, Wuming was playful. Since you already know my relationship with Alice, why should I be stingy for a while? Huh? Erikson raised her head in a panic and looked at Wuming. In other words, I can enjoy all this with Alice at night, Miss Erikson. Wuming squinted his eyes and smiled ambiguously. Although her face was a little flushed, Erikson was indeed Alice's personal servant. She could still maintain a calm expression. Okay, I'll stop teasing you. Wuming looked at Erikson, whose expression didn't change much, and said a little disinterestedly. By the way, Alice and the others should be back soon. Wuming looked at the time and calculated that Alice and the others who went shopping should be back soon. Because of Wuming's protection, Alice's body became like a normal person. This was great news for Alice, who couldn't leave the mansion at will and could only use her ghost body. Alice, who was very happy, gracefully kissed Wuming, and then happily went shopping with Erika. He could only say, "Speak of the devil." As soon as Wuming finished his words, the door of the house was opened. Alice and Erika came in, dressed with dignity and grace. How was it? Did you have fun shopping? Although he asked this question, Wuming still saw the answer in Alice's eyes. Well, thank you very much, Master Wuming. Alice bowed to Wuming again. There's no need. Now that everyone knows about our relationship, why are you still being so polite? Wuming teased. That's true. Then, please take care of me in the future, Master Wuming. Alice smiled happily. Erikson's face became even more distressed. At this moment, she was sad for her master who was involved with the God Slayer. There would be a lot of dangerous things in the future. Ahem, my king, Mariguchi Yuri has been safely sent back to Japan. The History Editing Committee of the local Magic Association has successfully protected him. Erika interrupted the strange atmosphere between Alice and Wuming. Chapter 179. Seeing that they were getting down to business, Wuming and Alice did not continue. Facing two kings at the same time, that witch must be scared. Alice sat on the sofa, and Erikson immediately poured a cup of black tea for Alice. Erikson also sat down and continued. I wasn't scared. The main point is that I heard the report from the escorts. When Wanli Gu woke up, he asked where our king went. It seems that our king has once again captured the heart of a young girl. Erikson looked at Wuming with a teasing look. Wuming smiled indifferently. Let's stop joking. How is Marquis Woban now? According to the intelligence of the Sage Parliament, the Marquis immediately returned to his base in the Balkans after the battle with you, and then there was no news of him. Alice put down the teacup, put her hands on her lower abdomen, and looked at Wuming elegantly. He used the resurrection authority, so he should not be able to move for a while. Let's not worry about him for now. Wuming crossed his arms and thought for a moment. After all, the restrictions of the resurrection authority were not so easy to break. Even Wuming's vitality incarnation, which had become a noble phantasm, had restrictions that prevented it from being used for a period of time after the resurrection. After all, it was a complete resurrection, and unlike Marquis Wuming's resurrection, Wuming would recover to his full state after the resurrection. Let's leave it at that for now. Wuming looked around at everyone and stood up. I've decided to leave England tomorrow and go to Japan. Wuming's sudden departure made Alice a little worried. Are you going to verify the contents of the spirit vision? To be honest, Alice was a little worried. After all, the scene she saw was too terrifying. The earth cracked, the sea withered, the volcanoes were ready to erupt, and the sky was filled with smoke and dust. The Divine Sword Envoy and the Divine Sword Envoy were constantly fighting, and destruction was coming. Wuming was not worried. He used the divine aura and touched Alice's head. Don't worry, I'll take care of everything. Affected by the holy aura, Alice's heart instantly calmed down. Don't worry, Your Highness Alice. As the first knight of Wuming, I'll keep an eye on the king and make sure he doesn't run off, Erika comforted her. Then I'll be counting on you, Miss Erika. Alice smiled sweetly. Wuming felt a little helpless. She spoke as if it was easy for him to create chaos. But it was clear that the Godslayers had the constitution to create trouble. That night, almost everyone was asleep, including Wuming. Suddenly, Wuming opened his eyes and looked in front of him. A loli was lying on Wuming's body. "What are you doing here?" Wuming was puzzled when he saw Athena's black pupils. However, Wuming did not see any fighting spirit in Athena's eyes, so he did not put up any defensive measures. No matter what, they were both gods of disobedience in principle, and both of them were related to the dragon snake god. In fact, there was no need for them to fight to the death. "To be able to wake up the moment I arrived, it seems that you haven't fallen during this period of time, my compatriot." Athena's magnetic voice reached Wuming's ears. Her snake-like eyes revealed a satisfied look of approval. Wuming sat up unhurriedly and hugged Athena, who was still sitting on his body. Wuming was not surprised that Athena could enter the mansion with multiple barriers. After all, Athena was known as the goddess of wisdom. How could a mere modern magic barrier stop Athena? "Why did you suddenly come to me? Are you still chasing after the Gorgon stone?" Wuming said rather casually and yawned halfway. For some reason, Wuming felt a sense of familiarity with Athena, so he did not fight with her like last time. Athena did not seem to care about being hugged by Wuming. To be exact, she enjoyed Wuming's embrace. Along the way, Athena shifted her body to make herself more comfortable. Athena then looked into Wuming's eyes seriously and said, "Of course, I'm chasing after the snake." Of course I'd been chasing after the snake, but I didn't sense the snake's presence this time. Athena was right. The aura of the Gorgon stone had indeed disappeared. To be exact, it was sealed by Wuming. Since Athena retreated, Wuming knew that he would not be able to get in touch with her for the time being. A powerful god relic like the Gorgon stone would not only attract Athena, but Marquis Warban as well. Therefore, Wuming used the advanced sealing spell in the Nameless spellbook and multiple lune runes to completely seal the aura of the Gorgon stone. After hearing Athena's words, Wuming extended his hand into the golden ripples that appeared in the air and took out a carved stone that did not contain any mana. "What do you think? It took me a lot of effort to seal the Gorgon stone. In addition to that, I placed it in my authority space. You didn't even notice it when you were so close to it." Wuming smiled proudly. Athena looked at Wuming with admiration. "I didn't expect you to have mastered so many powerful sealing spells. You're really something, Vilo-Theranced." Athena could feel the faint connection from the Gorgon stone. She could not help but touch the Gorgon stone. "Moreover, aren't you afraid that I'll take it away from you?" Athena placed her hand on the Gorgon stone with a fierce look in her eyes. Wuming smiled, then he patted Athena's head and said, "I can see that you don't have any intention of snatching it. And even if you do, I'm confident that I'll be able to take it back after you've done so." Athena smiled and patted Athena's head. Athena could not help but smile when she saw Wuming's confident expression. She touched Wuming's face and said, "As expected of the warrior I've chosen. My compatriot and fellow member of the Draconic Serpent. Looking at your confident smile, even I want to have a good fight with you." Athena was known as the goddess of war, so it was not surprising that she would be easily provoked. Seeing the flames of war in Athena's eyes, Wuming hurriedly interrupted her. "By the way, what are you doing here?" Fortunately, Athena's fighting spirit had yet to take shape. After hearing Wuming's doubts, Athena calmed down. "I have something I need your help with. I'll take you to a place." Athena jumped down from Wuming's bed, grabbed Wuming's hand, and jumped out of the window with Wuming. Just like that, Wuming, one of the only 7 Godslayers in the world and one of the 7 kings, ran away with a disobedient god. After Alice and Erica found Wuming, they criticized him more than once, but every time Wuming laughed it off. Of course, this was a story for another day. Chapter 180. After Athena pulled Wuming out of Alice's house, Wuming and Athena took a small sailboat that Athena got from nowhere. The sailboat was more like a large surfboard with a sail, so it was euphemistically called a sailboat. After getting on the sailboat, the wind began to blow, and the sailboat began to move quickly in a certain direction. "This is quite interesting. Is this your ability?" Wu Ming asked with interest. "This is the guidance of the wind." Athena stood at the front of the sailboat, looking at the endless sea. Wu Ming rolled his eyes, then continued. "Where are we going?" Athena answered without turning her head, "Naples." Naples was the largest city in southern Italy, the capital of Campania and the province of Naples. It was most famous for Mount Vesuvius, known as the most dangerous active volcano in Europe. Thinking about the information about Naples in his mind, Silent Wonder suddenly remembered something. "I remember, it seems that Gorgon stone was excavated in Naples." Wu Ming didn't believe that it had nothing to do with Gorgon stone. Wu Ming looked at Athena and motioned her to explain. Athena turned her head and smiled wickedly. "As expected of the warrior I like, even your brain is so smart. You and I are of the same generation, but I always feel that you're talking to the younger generation." Wu Ming shook his head. Athena ignored Wu Ming's complaint and continued. "Naples has draconic snake's aura, and steel will definitely appear there." "Steel?" Wu Ming was a little confused. Although Erica once provided Wu Ming with information about steel, it was still too little, so Wu Ming didn't know much about Steel God. Seeing Wu Ming's doubts about his natural enemy, Athena looked at Wu Ming with disappointment. "Although I don't know why you forgot about your natural enemy, let me teach you a lesson." Athena then told Wu Ming about Steel God. Steel God was a metaphor for the smelting process of steel and the legend that he himself was made of steel, as well as the god of disobedience who killed Draconic Snake. Generally speaking, as long as it was a hero god, they would have Steel God's characteristics. But it wasn't absolute. Generally speaking, the god of steel referred to the hero god, but most of the hero gods and non-hero gods with steel characteristics usually got their steel characteristics from the deeds of slaying dragon serpent. In that case, their steel characteristics would be particularly rare. Steel God's characteristics should have steel's smelting process and the legend that he himself was made of steel. The god of disobedience. Steel God and the God Slayer were natural enemies. As long as they fought each other, Steel God would become stronger, and the God Slayer would become fanatical and warlike. In addition, Steel God and the God of disobedience related to Draconic Snake were also natural enemies. In other words, Athena, who pursued Gorgon Stone, the snake, and Wu Ming, the Knight of the Round Table, Vilo-Therancid, were natural enemies of Steel God. Wu Ming raised his eyebrows. "Do you mean you want me to deal with Steel God? Or do you want to fight with me?" However, for those God of disobedience, there was no such thing as a gang fight. "How is that possible?" "Although I'm not that weak without Snake, I'm still a little weak, so I'm not your opponent." Athena smiled slyly. Wu Ming was now convinced that Athena must have found out about his identity as the god of disobedience, and that's why she came to him. Previously, Wu Ming didn't reject Wu Ming. Now, Wu Ming understood that this was like a cousin, younger cousin, and a cousin, older cousin. Even if they were cousins, they were still related. Of course, Wu Ming knew what Athena meant. With Wu Ming, the god of disobedience with a high draconic attribute, the god of steel in the present world would definitely come looking for him. Wu Ming believed that the god of disobedience with steel attribute would not let him go, no matter what. Athena, who lacked a snake, or the draconic serpent and the god slayer, would not let him go. But, that's not bad. I haven't seen the god of steel yet. This is a good opportunity to see him. Wu Ming's mouth raised again. Athena looked at his smile and smiled. Then Athena flew to Wu Ming and gently stroked Wu Ming's face. "This concubine likes your unruly smile. It's incomparably delightful." Seeing the fighting spirit in Athena's eyes again, Wu Ming quickly changed the topic. "Ahem. Is there any god relic in Naples?" After all, in order to make the god of steel appear, he needed Draconic Snake, but Athena only said that there was a Draconic Snake's aura, which meant that there was no god of disobedience with Draconic Snake attribute, so it was very likely that there was a god relic related to Draconic Snake. Yes, there is a god relic of Mother Earth there. Athena said. Mother Earth? Wu Ming remembered the information provided by Erica, which contained information about Mother Earth. Mother Earth, also known as Mother Earth or Mother Earth, referred to the goddess who specialized in fertility and symbolized the grace of the earth. However, not all goddesses in this category could be called Mother Earth. In myths around the world, the gods who could be classified as Mother Earth were powerful masters of maternal power in their mythological system. But in later myths, a large number of Mother Earth were belittled as the wife, sister, or daughter of a male god, or died directly. Take Huaxia as an example. Goddess Hutu, one of the 12 witch ancestors, was a very pure Mother Earth. Hutu incarnated into the 6 paths of reincarnation and died directly. And the belittled Mother Earth, if Wu Ming remembered correctly, Athena seemed to be one too. This also explained why Athena in the present world was incomplete, because after she was belittled, the divinity of Mother Earth was split into Gorgon stone. With that thought in mind, Wu Ming looked at Athena. What are you trying to say with that look in your eyes? Athena said calmly. Nothing, I just thought of something interesting. Wu Ming smiled casually and stopped thinking about it. After all, Athena could be said to be a friend now, not an enemy, so there was no need to consider fighting her. Athena seemed to have seen through Wu Ming's thoughts, so she said, Don't be happy too early. I'll fight you sooner or later. This is a war you started, so you have to be responsible for extinguishing it. Wu Ming, who had just relaxed, froze again. We're here. Wu Ming snapped back to his senses and looked in Athena's direction. What entered his sight was a huge port. Chapter 181. The bustling port during the day has become quiet at this moment. After landing on the shore, Wu Ming and Athena headed in a certain direction, which seemed to be a mining mountain. You can feel it, right? Athena asked. Wu Ming nodded and looked in the direction where the two were walking. This magical power is like Gorgon stone that has been completely unsealed. However, at that moment, Wu Ming also felt another magical power, which he was very familiar with. This is. If I remember correctly, this is Salvatore's power. Wu Ming said so and continued to look in the direction he was looking at before. That's right. There's another enemy of mine here, Athena said as she looked at a certain spot on the mountain. Wu Ming felt the power that Salvatore used during the battle, the silver arm that could split everything. The Sage Council of Greenwich called it, Silver Arm the Ripper. Wu Ming had a bad feeling. If that idiot is here, it seems that this battle with the God of Steel is inevitable. As soon as Wu Ming finished speaking, a huge magical power rose from somewhere in the mountain, and a huge beam of light illuminated the entire port of Naples. Then, in the eyes of Wu Ming and Athena, the huge magical power began to condense, and finally formed a huge western dragon. The draconic snake has appeared, and the God of Steel should be nearby. Athena explained to Wu Ming. I see. Let's hurry up and deal with the God of Steel. Although I'm not human and don't need to sleep, I can't change my habit. Wu Ming yawned and then ran in the direction of the dragon. Athena, on the other hand, watched as Wu Ming left. She spread her owl wings and followed after him. At the top of Mount Vesuvius, the crater. A young Caucasian man with blonde hair stood at the crater of the volcano. He was dressed in an elegant white suit and looked down at the giant dragon flying above Naples. So that's how it is, the God of Steel appeared because of the serpent. After saying that, the man jumped. Nay! A white-winged Pegasus flew over from nowhere, and the man jumped on the Pegasus' back. Nay! The Pegasus flew toward the dragon with the man on its back. At that moment, the blonde man and Wu Ming rushed toward the dragon's serpent at the same time. The dark green dragon flapped its wings and soared into the sky. Its wild eyes scanned the surroundings as if it was curious about the surrounding buildings. At that moment, the blonde man came to the dragon's head. Evil dragon, today, I, the hero, Perseus, will kill you. Like a hero slaughtering an evil dragon in a fairy tale, Perseus condensed a long blade in his hand and charged towards the giant dragon. Roar! The dragon was unwilling to be outdone. After roaring, it rushed toward Perseus. However, with the god of steel's attribute, the dragon was bound to be at a disadvantage against Perseus. Not to mention, the dragon was just a divine beast, while Perseus was a god of steel. Roar! A huge saber light flashed, and the dragon roared in pain. A bone-revealing wound appeared on its body, and blood flowed out. The dragon roared and fell to the ground, making a loud noise. Roar! Roar! The giant dragon let out a sorrowful cry as if it had foreseen its end. Its cry was very tragic. However, the god of steel would not let it go. Today, the hero, Perseus, will kill the dragon again. Perseus said very confidently, then raised the long sword in his hand and slashed toward the dragon. Please wait a minute. A girl's voice came. Perseus stopped what he was doing and turned around when he heard the melodious voice of a young girl. What a beautiful girl. This is very consistent with the story of killing the dragon to save the princess. Perseus smiled happily. If Wu Ming was here, he would definitely recognize the girl in front of Perseus. She was Liliana Kranikar, who left alone after Marquis Warban was defeated. Great Lord, please show mercy. This dragon is condensed from the magical power of the Neapolitan spiritual vein. If you kill it, it will cause irreversible damage to the Neapolitan spiritual vein. Liliana knelt on one knee and looked at Perseus with a serious face, hoping that the god could show mercy. However, since Perseus had appeared as the god of disobedience, he would not listen to the opinions of humans. How can that be, young man? This is a dragon, an existence that must be killed. I have made up my mind. Back down, girl. With that said, Perseus raised his long saber again and slashed at the dragon. Swoosh, the sword flashed, and one of the dragon's wings was cut off by Perseus. Roar! The dragon howled weakly. Please wait a minute. Liliana rushed to Perseus. I said, back down, girl. With Perseus's words, there was also a magical impact that repelled Liliana. Liliana was sent flying, but she did not feel the coldness of the ground. Then, Liliana opened her closed eyes. Yo, Miss Liliana. Wu Ming held Liliana and stood steadily on the ground. I'm sorry, King. Liliana reacted as if she had just reacted. She quickly broke free from the arms of Wu Ming and others and knelt on one knee to salute Wu Ming. Perseus looked at Wu Ming with a smile. Oh, you're both my compatriot and my mortal enemy. How interesting. My compatriot refers to the god of disobedience and steel, and my old enemy refers to the god slayer who has the nature of draconic snake. Perseus flicked the bloodstains on his long saber and continued. You are obviously a mixture of draconic snake and steel, but you can clearly distinguish the aura of draconic snake and steel. Both the god of disobedience and the god slayer, both draconic snake and steel, it seems that I have met a big shot, ha ha ha. Perseus was excited. Wu Ming raised his eyebrows and thought. Do I still have steel's aura? Why didn't Athena tell me? Wu Ming, who was not a native of this world, could not accurately distinguish the aura of draconic snake and steel, not to mention that the identity of draconic snake and steel was imposed on Wu Ming by this world. However, thinking about it carefully, Vilo-Theron-Seed did indeed have the dual attributes of steel and draconic snake. First, the mysterious identity of the legendary dragon. It could be said that Vilo-Theron-Seed was the god of draconic snake. Second, Vilo-Theron-Seed did have the legend of forging X-Silver, and Vilo also had a close relationship with King Arthur, who was also steel and draconic snake, so it was not wrong for him to have steel's attribute. But even if it was not draconic snake and steel, would Wu Ming not care about it? The answer was no. Who cares? With that thought in mind, Wu Ming said to Perseus, I'm really sorry. Due to the willful request of a certain goddess, I have no choice but to come and fight you. With that said, Wu Ming pointed at the gigantic dragon behind him who looked like a trembling puppy. Huh? A certain goddess? Liliana was a little surprised. At this time, Athena flew in front of the dragon. "You are really rude, god of steel." Athena touched the dragon, and then the dragon turned into pure energy and was injected into Athena's body. "So that's how it is, the goddess of earth and draconic snake's hero, what a good combination." Perseus smiled elegantly. "So, I have to deal with two opponents this time?" Although he was surrounded, Perseus still said arrogantly. "How can that be?" "Of course, it's my hero who will fight you. I'm looking forward to this duel." Athena smiled slyly. Wuming shrugged his shoulders casually, then looked at Perseus. "As you can see, there's no time to lose. Hurry up, I still want to sleep." Seeing Wuming yawning and looking down on him, Perseus was a little annoyed. "It seems that I have been underestimated. I have to teach you a lesson, my old enemy." Chapter 182. Perseus charged forward with his sword and swung it at Wuming. Wuming, on the other hand, did not even look at it. He extended his hand and grabbed it directly. What? No matter what, Perseus was a god and the weapon he used was a god relic. No matter how strong his body was as a god slayer and a god of disobedience, it was illogical for him to grab a white sword with one hand. Alright, it was magical. As expected, my body is strong enough to resist a god relic now that I've become a god slayer. Wuming smiled as he grabbed Perseus' sword as if he had expected it. As expected of a top dragon snake. It's not unreasonable for him to have such a powerful armor. Perseus immediately let go of the long sword in his hand and leaped backward. At that moment, Athena, who was standing behind Perseus, had already left. Perseus materialized a bow and immediately pulled the bow fully. A seemingly ordinary arrow was shot at Wuming. Along the way, a powerful force exploded from the arrow. Like a dragon, it charged at Wuming. Wuming tossed the long sword in his hand away. The long sword turned into mana and disappeared. Wuming said to Liliana directly, "This isn't something you can get involved in. Step back a little." Although Liliana was a little hesitant, she still listened to Wuming. "Yes, Your Majesty. Please control your power a little and try your best to reduce the damage to Naples." Subsequently, Liliana realized that her words were a little rude to the god slayer who was a king. She immediately knelt on one knee. Please forgive me." Liliana said something that crossed the line. "Please punish me, Your Majesty," Liliana said with a blush on her face. Looking at the adorable Liliana, Wuming could not bring himself to blame her. Subsequently, Wuming immediately took out the X silver from the golden ripple. Bang! Wuming casually waved his hand, and the huge mana arrow was neutralized by X silver's mana impact. "Alright, I'll pardon you. Back off a little and protect yourself first." After saying that, Wuming ignored Liliana and Wuming extended his left hand to Perseus. "Please, Enkidu." Wuming once again woke up Enkidu, who had fallen asleep because Wuming wanted to rest. "Yes, leave it to me, Lord Wuming." A golden chain appeared on Wuming's left hand. The golden chain slid at a speed visible to the naked eye. Then, it wrapped around Perseus before he could react. "Humph. You want to trap my hero Perseus with mere chains?" Perseus tried to struggle, but he couldn't break free. Not to mention breaking free, these strange golden chains were getting tighter and tighter. "What is this? Is this a weapon against gods?" Perseus couldn't help but ask. Wuming was still in a leisurely mood. He slowly walked up to Perseus and said, "This is Enkidu, the heaven lock that is specially used to deal with gods. I think even you should have heard of it." Looking at Wuming, who was getting closer and closer, Perseus broke out in a cold sweat. "Is it a weapon against gods in the Sumer divine system? I don't think this is the authority you obtained from killing gods. I really didn't expect that you, a Celtic god, actually have a treasure from the Sumer divine system. I'm really getting more and more curious about you." Wuming stopped when he was still some distance away from Perseus. "So, are you ready to return to mythology, Perseus?" I'm the strongest, and I hold all victory in my hands. No matter if it's a human or a demon, I'm the one who defeats all enemies' hostility. I will defeat any enemy that blocks my way. Giants with unparalleled divine power, please give me your aid. As the words were spoken, the long pointer on the stone plate in Wuming's inner world suddenly turned and pointed to the 2:00 direction. It was the stone plate that depicted a giant that towered into the sky. Then a huge golden giant phantom appeared and enveloped Wuming. Thou hast violated the contract and brought evil to the world. Lord's Day, sinners will be punished. Shatter their backs, dig out their bones, hair, and brains, and trample on their blood and mud. If I'm the one who can't get close to the darkness, I'll follow the Lord's words and destroy thee. The short pointer on the stone plate pointed to the 5:00 direction. The small stone plate lit up, and the small stone plate that lit up was engraved with a portrait that looked like a black hole that absorbed everything. In an instant, the giant changed color from the original gold to red, and its entire body was surrounded by the aura of annihilation. The land around Wuming began to disappear bit by bit. As if sensing something, the light behind Perseus shone brightly and illuminated Wuming. However, this was of no use. The giant moved according to Wuming's thoughts. It raised its hand and caught the mythical beast that was flying in the sky, Pegasus, and then crushed it. Nay, Pegasus let out a mournful cry and died in the giant's red palm. Even the mana that had disappeared was devoured by the red palm and wiped out completely. Why? That's obviously the power of Welslana. How can it not be sealed? Perseus was shocked. Of course, Wuming would not tell him that it was a noble relic that was sublimated from the combination of Welslana and Mecker's powers. 12 powers, God's Killer level, EX type, Human Noble Relic distance, 1 maximum catch, 1 There were 12 incarnations of Dragon species, Giant, Warrior, Storm, Annihilation, Flood, Vitality, Dependence, Thunder God, Phoenix, Sun, and Magician. Each incarnation was comparable to a noble relic. It was the upgraded version of the power that came from killing the gods' clones. It had become Wuming's own thing. I don't have the idea of a villain telling the protagonist about his ability. You can return to the myth in confusion. With that, the giant's shadow held Perseus. Damn it. Ah. Damn God Slayer. Damn snake. Perseus roared and struggled frantically, but he could not break free from the lock of heaven, Enkidu. The one with the power of annihilation. Kill him with one blow, shatter and annihilate him. Chanting again, the red giant burst out a dark red light, and the hand that was holding Perseus clenched hard. At this point, the famous hero in Greek mythology, Perseus, returned to the myth. Wuming removed the incarnations of Giant and Annihilation and took back the lock of heaven. Little N, are you okay? Wuming asked with concern. It's okay, Master Wuming, because the attack just now was your noble relic. Although it had the power to threaten me, I was not hurt. The golden chain wrapped around Wuming's arm, and there was a cool female voice. I think so too. After all, I now have full control of the power of authority. Suddenly, Wuming found a problem. Why didn't the power increase? It was not that Wuming needed Perseus' power, but the timing was too strange. The God Slayer would definitely gain the power after killing the god of disobedience. This was the law of Pandora's great curse. Wuming instantly emptied his mind and felt the changes in the surrounding magic. Found it. Chapter 183. I am the strongest and the one who holds all victory in my hands. No matter if it is a human or a demon, I will defeat any enemy that stands in my way. Giant with supreme divine power, give me your aid. Fear the one with wings. Evil people and powerful people are all afraid of me with wings. My wings will bring you a curse. Evil people will not be able to hit me. In an instant, Wuming chanted 2 words in a row. The long and short needles on the stone plate in his heart pointed at 2:00 and 10:00 respectively. The towering giant and the illusory phoenix lit up. At a speed that was difficult to be seen by the naked eye, Wu Ming rushed to a small forest not far away. Wu Ming raised an arm and the shadow of a giant's hand appeared. Then, the giant's hand slammed into the house. Boom! The hurricane surged in all directions and the earth groaned. The hurricane blew over some of the surrounding buildings. Even Liliana, who was unprepared, was blown away. With the house as the center, the ground cracked like a spider web. However, Wu Ming did not feel like he had hit the target. A black shadow escaped from the house before Wu Ming hit it. "Master Villo, please stop." The black shadow let out a voice that Wu Ming missed. "What's this voice?" Wu Ming stopped and dismissed the two avatars. Looking at the black shadow that he could not see clearly, Wu Ming was a little excited. "It can't be wrong. It's you, Guinevere." The black shadow walked in front of Wu Ming and revealed her true form. It was a beautiful white girl about 12 or 13 years old. Her golden curly hair outlined an elegant curve and set off an extremely beautiful face. She was like a child's version of the Guinevere that Wu Ming knew in the Moon world. "Master Villo, I missed you so much." With a choked voice, Guinevere threw herself into Wu Ming's arms. Wu Ming squatted down, as if he was a father hugging his daughter. "I don't know what kind of relationship Guinevere and I have in this world, but King Arthur is not a woman." With that in mind, Wu Ming patted Guinevere's back. Although it wasn't Guinevere from the same world, the sense of familiarity he felt was the same. "Guinevere, why are you here?" Wu Ming asked with concern. Guinevere wiped his tears, raised his head, and looked at Wu Ming. "Master Villo, I came to find the last king." Guinevere then spoke to his shadow. "Uncle, please come out." In a split second, Guinevere's shadow rippled as a fully armored knight appeared from Guinevere's shadow. "Master Villo, it's my honor to see you again." The neutral voice conveyed from the heavy armor made Wu Ming wonder if Lancelot in this world was a man. Seeing that Wu Ming didn't speak, Guinevere thought that Wu Ming was blaming Lancelot and quickly explained. "Master Villo, uncle appeared as my patron saint, God's shadow. Because of his berserk skill, he lost the memory of the people he knew, and I lost my memory because I reincarnated for too long. I didn't mean to neglect you. If I didn't come in close contact with you, I wouldn't have recognized you." Seeing that Guinevere seemed to have misunderstood something, Wu Ming smiled and shook his head. "I don't mean to blame you, I'm just thinking about what you said about the last king." "Master Villo, don't you know the last king?" "I thought you were the last king," Guinevere said with some disappointment. Then, Lancelot spoke. "Lord Varen, Wu Hawu's daughter came here for the strongest steel god. We want to use the dragon snake to lure the last king out." After a brief description, Wu Ming understood Guinevere and Lancelot's plan. Both of them had their own mission, to find the last king and liberate the strongest steel. However, neither of them knew the identity of the last king, so they could only keep looking for him. The easiest way to find steel was to liberate Dragon Snake. Therefore, Hera's stone pillar under the ruins of Naples became a good tool to use. However, Salvatore was an unexpected guest. Salvatore was knocked out in a fight with Wu Ming, so Salvatore, who felt that he had not fought enough, found this relic in Italy. It was the Hera's stone pillar. After cutting Hera's stone pillar in half with silver arm the rip, the huge magical impact sent Salvatore flying. The demonic dragon condensed from the magical power of the spiritual vein of Naples attracted Perseus. Liliana wanted to stop Salvatore's behavior because she was with Salvatore before, but because she didn't stop it in time, Hera's stone pillar was cut off. After Salvatore was sent flying by the magical impact, Liliana wanted to stop the dragon from wreaking havoc, so she followed the dragon. As a result, she saw that Perseus was going to attack the dragon, and then it was Wu Ming's turn. With the idea of seeing whether Perseus was the last king, Guinevere and Lancelot hid and waited for the battle between Wu Ming and Perseus. The result was no doubt that Wu Ming won. "I've already said that Lord Varen's status is not something a mere mitra can compare to," Lancelot said. Hearing this, Wu Ming thought of the light that Perseus released at the end, which was like a sun, and why Perseus said that it couldn't be sealed. When Wu Ming first met Perseus, he quietly asked Callas to find out all the information about Perseus. He had no doubt that Perseus was wooing of Mitra. And because Perseus was Mitra, he had a sealing effect on Wellislana's authority. However, what Perseus did not expect was that the 10 avatars that had become Wuming's noble phantasm could no longer be affected by Mitra. After all, the 12 avatars of Wuming had exclusive authority. I'm really happy to be able to see Sir Villo. Guinevere smiled sweetly. This reminded Wuming of Guinevere in the Moon world. Both of them loved to smile. Regardless of whether they were related or not, Wuming still liked Guinevere, who loved to smile. Although it's a little surprising that Sir Villo became a godslayer, did Sir Villo also use some secret technique to turn people around? Guinevere said softly. We're very sorry, Sir Villo. Since you become a godslayer, you definitely won't be the last king, Lancelot continued Guinevere's words. I wish you success, Sir Villo. Lancelot summoned a white horse and left with Guinevere. Wuming did not stop them. Instead, he was deep in thought. Chapter 184. Wuming stood on the spot and pondered. It was only when Liliana, who was blown away, came back to Wuming that Wuming reacted. My king, are you all right? Liliana asked worriedly. Although Liliana was puzzled when Wuming attacked the forest, she saw a figure dodging Wuming's attack the moment she was blown away. Liliana was worried that Wuming was affected by an unknown mysterious person. That was why she was so worried. After all, he was the king. I'm fine. After Wuming came back to his senses, he remembered something. He had not yet asked what Perseus's authority was. He shook his head regretfully. Then, let's restore this place to its original state, Wuming said as he reached his hand into the golden ripple. Then, Wuming took out the item that was used to restore the land and buildings. As mana was transported into the item, the damaged land and buildings began to recover. Liliana looked at the scene in surprise and made a strange sound. After restoring all the damaged land to its original state, Wuming looked at Liliana. Let's go. Bring me to the Bronze Cross and Black Cross stronghold to sleep. Damn it, I'm exhausted after fighting in the middle of the night. Wuming stretched and yawned. Liliana seemed to have thought of something and her young face blushed. As if she had made a big decision, Liliana blushed and looked at Wuming solemnly. I understand. If I can appease the king's anger, then I can. At the end of her sentence, Liliana's voice was completely inaudible. Wuming looked strangely at Liliana, who had turned into a mosquito coil with smoke coming out of her head. Then, he knocked on her head. All right, bring me to the Bronze Cross stronghold first. Yes. Wuming left with Liliana. After a while, Guinevere and Lancelot returned. Uncle, why are you avoiding Sir Villo? Also, I haven't told Lord Wuming about the arrowhead disc absorbing Perseus's authority. Guinevere held a stone disc in his hand. There was a special sword-shaped text on it. Guinevere looked at Lancelot, who was hugging him, in confusion. That's right, Wuming didn't obtain authority after killing Perseus because of the stone disc in Guinevere's hand. That was the treasure of the last king. It had the ability to absorb and use the power of steel. Moreover, Lancelot was indeed avoiding Wuming. This was something that Wuming could see. My beloved daughter, since Mr. Villo has become a godslayer, he is our enemy. Lancelot's helmeted eyes glowed red. Enemy? Guinevere found it hard to accept. Guinevere, who had lost most of his memories, felt incomparably blessed when he was able to recall Vero Cyrus Eddy. The gods of this world had multiple identities. Although the Guinevere of this world wasn't completely Guinevere, he still had memories of his time as Guinevere. Guinevere's eyes were a little wet when he remembered what he had experienced with his personal knight, Villo Thoranst. However, it was Guinevere's lifelong wish to find and unseal the last king. I understand, uncle. Although Guinevere seemed to be in pain, he still decided to treat Wooming as an enemy. Lancelot nodded. After a while, Guinevere sighed and looked at Lancelot behind him. Guinevere smiled and said, "Actually, uncle, you are the one suffering the most." Lancelot's body trembled and his hands clenched into fists. People always thought that the person Lancelot respected and admired the most was King Arthur, but in reality, the person Lancelot respected and admired the most was King Arthur's first knight, Villothoranst. Guinevere looked at Lancelot with a pained expression and continued. Because of the relationship between Villot and Guinevere, after Villot was sealed as the demonic dragon, Lancelot volunteered to be Guinevere's personal knight and protect the person he respected the most. Just like that, Lancelot became Guinevere's guardian and appeared on the ground as the shadow of God, until today when he met that lord again. Lancelot was silent for a moment before he spoke. "I'm protecting you because you are the prerequisite to finding the last king. There is no other reason. I'm a little weak now, so I'll return to your shadow." Then, Lancelot and the white horse turned into a black shadow and merged into Guinevere's shadow. "You're not frank at all, uncle." Guinevere smiled. Next, it's Monarch Ape in the easternmost land. Dark clouds covered the moon and darkness shrouded the land. A moment later, the wind blew away the dark clouds and Guinevere was long gone. The next day. Although Wooming slept very late last night, he still woke up early. When he walked out of the room that Liliana prepared for Wooming at the Bronze Black Cross last night, he heard a pleasant female voice. "Lord Wooming, you're up. Do you need me to prepare breakfast?" A girl in a maid uniform asked Wooming. Hearing that, Wooming looked at the girl. Her long green hair flowed naturally behind her back and her face was filled with a sly smile, from Wooming's perspective. "I remember your name is Karen, right?" Wooming asked. "Yes, it's my honor to be remembered by Lord Wooming." The girl named Karen bowed and replied with a smile. "Then, I'll have to trouble you to prepare breakfast for me," Wooming said. "Your breakfast has been prepared by Miss Liliana. Please come with me." With that, Karen pointed forward with both hands and motioned for Wooming to go first. Wooming shrugged and walked forward. Karen followed behind Wooming with a smile on her face. Glancing at the maid, Wooming could not help but think of last night. After Liliana brought Wooming to the Bronze Black Cross's stronghold in Naples, Liliana personally prepared a room for Wooming. Karen was also there at that time, and Liliana introduced her to Wooming. Then, after Wooming entered the room, Liliana walked in pajamas after a short while. Looking at the blushing Liliana, Wooming shook his head and asked for the reason. In the end, because of Liliana's fantasy and the instigation and bewitching words of the maid named Karen, Liliana thought that she had to serve Wooming in bed to appease his anger. After being lectured by Wooming for a while, Liliana ran out of the room with a blush. "You won't even let go of your master. You really are a little devil," Wooming said casually. "Thank you for the compliment, Lord Wooming." Karen smiled and thanked Wooming. Soon, Wooming arrived at the dining room. Chapter 185. When he pushed open the door of the restaurant, what he saw was not the luxurious feast that Wooming had imagined. Instead, it was an extremely simple Italian breakfast. Sandwiches, sausages, fried eggs, bread, and a cup of coffee. It was simple and sumptuous. Seeing Wooming's stunned expression, Liliana, who was standing at the side, was a little flustered. Because I don't know what you like, King. However, I heard that you are the British god of disobedience, so I tried to make some British breakfast food." Looking at Liliana, who was a little embarrassed, Wooming laughed heartily. "Ha ha ha ha." Liliana was frightened by Wooming's laughter, while Karen was secretly laughing. She had already heard that there was no dissatisfaction in this laughter, only happiness. Sorry. Because every time I'm served by others, it's an extremely sumptuous banquet, so I'm not used to such dullness." Then, Wooming walked to the table and sat down. "However, although this food is simple, it feels sumptuous. I'm very satisfied, Liliana." Liliana heaved a sigh of relief and patted her small chest that had just developed. King, it's good that you like it. Wu Ming took a bite of the fried egg. It was surprisingly not bad. Could it be that Liliana made all these herself? Wu Ming asked. Why yes. Liliana's face was slightly red as she said shyly. Your culinary skills are really good. Do you want to come and be my knight? Wu Ming said with a smile. Huh? Liliana exclaimed. It was obvious that she did not react in time. I'm serious. I'm very satisfied with your performance last night. For this land, you launched an attack on Perseus alone. Although you overestimated yourself, this is what a knight should be like. Think about it. Perhaps it was because he had been in Camelot for too long. Wu Ming had a particularly good impression of people with chivalry. Moreover, she was a beautiful young lady. Cough cough, Karen walked to Wu Ming's side and said, I'm sorry, Lord Wu Ming. I'll go and persuade Miss Liliana. I'll take my leave first. After bowing, Karen brought Liliana out of the restaurant without any explanation. Karen, huh? I remember that you're the trainee witch of the Bronze Black Cross. You really live up to the title of witch. This character. Wu Ming smiled, then began to enjoy the food again. Outside the door, Karen stood Liliana. Karen, what are you doing? It's rude to leave the king alone. As she spoke, Liliana pretended to go back. Miss Liliana, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Liliana was Liliana and LLA. Our Bronze Black Cross and Red Bronze Black Cross are the two biggest magic associations in Italy. We used to have equal status. In the end, Lady Erica Brantley sought refuge with Lord Wu Ming. Our Bronze Black Cross has gradually declined. Karen turned around and continued, also, because of your incompetence, Marquis Waban also thought that you're dead. If Lord Marquis finds out that you're still alive, he'll go and look for you. Who knows what this eccentric Lord Marquis will do? Liliana's body trembled. For example, the Bronze Black Cross of Destruction, the original plan was for you to seek refuge with Minister Salvatore, but in the end, you lost him. Last night, because Salvatore Tony slashed open the god relic Hera's stone pillar, he was swept away by the huge magic impact. Moreover, Lord Wu Ming requested to bring him to the Bronze Black Cross foothold, so Liliana missed the King of Swords. Didn't you want to give yourself to the King of Disobedience yesterday? Why don't you seek refuge with him? Liliana blushed again as she spoke to this point. It's all because of you. Otherwise, why would I misinterpret the king's words? Liliana pointed at Karen with a blushing face. Don't you think this is fated, Ms. Liliana? Karen smiled faintly. Fated? Fated? Liliana could not react in time. Karen smiled cunningly and continued to explain. On the night of the disaster, the hero and the heroine met under the moon. The hero defeated the evil opponent and brought the heroine home safely. As Karen's words bewitched her, Liliana, who was delusional, began to fantasize with a blushing face. Ms. Liliana? Karen interrupted Liliana's fantasy. After snapping back to her senses, Liliana coughed with a blushing face. Cough. Looking at the current situation, that's the only way. Oh, Ms. Liliana, you're not frank at all. Looking at Karen's mocking smile, Liliana was like an angry kitten. At this moment, a voice sounded. How is it? Have you thought it through? Wu Ming stood beside the two girls and said. When? Both Liliana and Karen were shocked. After snapping back to her senses, Liliana knelt on one knee. Liliana Kranikar, I offer my everything to the King of God Slayers. I will turn into a sharp sword and cut through all enemies that block the path of the king. Just like that, Liliana became Wu Ming's knight. So, this is your excuse to take advantage of my absence. Erica looked at the serious Liliana and was a little displeased. The next day, Erica found that Wu Ming was missing, so she urgently contacted Wu Ming. After learning that Wu Ming was in Naples, she immediately rushed over. And no choice. I came because I saw that Lord Wooming needs talents around him. After all, how can the king not have a servant who knows how to cook? Liliana blushed a little. Although Erica was right, Liliana would definitely not compromise with her rival. Oh, is that so? Then Lily, as the head chef, you can prepare food for the king in the rear. If there is any battle, I, Erica Brantley, will take care of it. What? Damn Erica, I am the king's knight. Preparing food for the king is just a side job. Oh, you don't care about preparing food for the king. This is the dream of many people. It seems that Lily, you still underestimate the king too much. How could that be? I didn't mean that. Seeing Liliana gradually being forced into a disadvantageous position by Erica, Wooming interrupted the conversation between the two. Okay, that's enough. Get ready, we will go to Japan tomorrow. Huh? Go to Japan, why so suddenly? Liliana was puzzled. After all, the original plan was to go to Japan. Wooming was dragged here by Athena, and Liliana had just become Wooming's knight. It was normal that she didn't know the truth. After Erica told her about Alice's spirit vision prophecy, Liliana also understood the seriousness of the matter. I see, the last king of the strongest steel is in Japan. Since my lord wants to go, then as my lord's knight, Liliana Kranikar will definitely follow. Me too, Erica Brantley swears to follow you to the death, Erica said defiantly. You two are the wielder of the twin swords, Lion's Heart and Silver Master Craftsman. Can't you two get along well? Wooming complained. The weapons used by the two were the swords of a former Grand Knight. They were originally a pair of magic swords, but because of the death of the Grand Knight, the magic swords were separated. After tossing and turning, they fell into the hands of the Black Cross and the Black Cross, and were then handed over to their respective prodigies. I love Lily very much, Wooming, Erica said with a sly look. Who would believe you, you vixen? Liliana looked angry. Obviously, Erica had tricked Liliana more than once. Erica stopped talking back to Liliana and looked at Wooming. Then, I'll contact the plane to Japan. Liliana also got up and said, I'll go prepare dinner tonight. Then, the two girls left the room. At this moment, Wooming was thinking. Where did Athena go? Chapter 186. Wooming remembered Athena, who started the whole thing. If it weren't for Athena, Wooming wouldn't have come to Naples. It wasn't Athena's fault. Ever since Wooming learned about his identity as the god of disobedience, Wooming had a special fondness for dragon snake and steel. Fortunately, Wooming could still control himself. The problem was that Athena was gone. It was like the banquet was over, and the host left first. I always feel like you're thinking about something bad. Suddenly, Athena's voice sounded behind Wooming. Wooming turned his head, and the first thing he saw was the child's body. Athena, where have you been? Wooming touched Athena's head. Then, Wooming smelled blood on Athena's body. What happened? Did someone hurt you? Wooming frowned and asked Athena with concern. Oh, you're really bold, Villo. Do you think you can touch the goddess like this just because you're a dragon snake incarnation? Athena narrowed her eyes and looked at Wooming with a puzzled look. In short, let's heal first. Saying this, Wooming squatted down and activated his magician avatar. With the power of my words, remove all pain. Wooming's body began to glow. Then, Wooming approached Athena. I'll heal you now. Just when Wooming was about to touch Athena's forehead with his forehead, Athena suddenly stepped forward and kissed Wooming. Wooming, who didn't expect Athena to kiss him, was a little stunned and stood there in a daze. After a brief kiss, Athena let go of Wooming's lips. Why didn't you heal me? Athena looked at Wooming with her big obsidian eyes. At this time, Wooming reacted. That. I forgot. Wooming smiled awkwardly. Then, that was your reward for defeating Perseus. Let's do it again. This time, it's healing. After that, Athena kissed Wu Ming again without giving him time to react. Wu Ming, who was already prepared, activated his magician incarnation's healing ability. Through the kiss, Athena's body began to glow. After healing Athena, when Wu Ming wanted to separate, Athena hugged Wu Ming's head. Wu Ming was not a pretentious person. Since Athena didn't want to let go, then he'll be happy with it. As the saying goes, life is like that, if you can't resist it, then enjoy it. After a French kiss, Athena separated from Wu Ming. Athena and Athena separated had a crystal's bloods. Athena sucked hard, and the liquid was sucked into Athena's mouth. This is an extra reward, Athena said calmly. The goddess's reward is really rich. Wu Ming smiled. Later, Wu Ming sat on the bed with Athena in his arms. Your injuries were caused by Salvatore, right? Wu Ming asked. When Wu Ming treated Athena, Callas detected the residual magic power from the wound. It was Salvatore's magic power. Well, when I was watching the battle, I found another god slayer, so I went to stop him, Athena explained the process to Wu Ming. After Salvatore was blown away by the magic power generated by Hera's stone pillar, he came to Sardinia. With the idea that he could not miss the battle, Salvatore hurried back to Naples. Originally, when Salvatore noticed that Wu Ming was fighting with Perseus, he wanted to watch the battle, but Athena came. After knowing that the other party was goddess Athena, Salvatore's fighting spirit was ignited again. So, the two fought. As a result, Salvatore, who broke out with fighting spirit, used his full strength. Athena, who still had an incomplete divinity, didn't want to fight with Salvatore. She just wanted to stall him, so she was slashed by Salvatore. Although Athena had slightly healed herself, the compatibility between Salvatore's silver arm the Ripper and Athena was quite bad. Therefore, for the current Athena, the wound caused by Salvatore's slash could not be completely healed. It's just a minor injury. It doesn't matter. Athena was quite calm. Then, Athena's nose twitched. You met the god ancestor, right? The god ancestor was the form of the Mother Earth after her fall. After the Mother Earth fell into the god ancestor, she lost most of her authority as a god and became able to combine with humans to give birth to offspring. For example, Wanli Gu Yoli, the witch that Wu Ming saved when he defeated Marquis Warban. A witch like her who had the rare talent of spirit vision, was the descendant of the god ancestor and human. Wu Ming's newly recruited knight, Liliana Kranikar, also had the spirit vision ability. She was a witch and also the descendant of the god ancestor and human in ancient times. For example, the spirit vision ability of Wanli Gu Yoli and Liliana was like an atavism. They had special abilities such as seeing through divinity, analyzing God's name, and temporarily foreseeing the future. Alice's spirit vision ability, which could foresee the future for a long time, could be said to be quite powerful. Although this ability was very powerful, more powerful than that of Wanli Gu Yoli and Liliana, there were also drawbacks. That was a significant decrease in physical fitness. The reason why Liliana could become a knight and fight on the battlefield was that her spirit vision ability was quite weak. Such a weak spirit vision ability gave her a strong physical fitness. For example, Wanli Gu Yoli's spirit vision could be said to be on the high side. Her physical fitness was inclined to the virtual side. On the other hand, Alice's body was directly affected. Not only was her body sickly weak, but she also couldn't go out for long periods of time. Even standing for a little longer would cause slight damage to Alice's body. She could only walk outside in the form of a ghost. This was the drawback. But compared to the drawbacks, its advantages were coveted by countless magicians. The descendants of the god ancestor like Guinevere had a chance of producing such a talent. You mean Guinevere, right? You know my identity. It's not strange for me to meet Guinevere. Hearing Wu Ming's words, Athena's snake-like eyes flashed with a trace of seriousness. You may not know, but Guinevere, who was able to degenerate into a god ancestor, had a long-cherished wish that couldn't be realized even after several reincarnations. Moreover, you, who have become a god slayer, are completely opposed to the long-cherished wish of the god ancestor. Looking at Athena's obsidian eyes, Wu Ming smiled. So what? So what if it's fate? Didn't we, the god of disobedience, come here to fight against fate? Wu Ming said confidently. Although he was not the god of disobedience in the true sense, he was. I have underestimated you, Vilo silenced. Thinking about it, only heroes like you can say such words. Athena said as she broke free from Wu Ming's embrace. Since you have said so, I will not stop you. I look forward to your new story in Japan. Until we meet again, my compatriot. With that, Athena turned into a black shadow and disappeared into the night. Chapter 187. The next day, Wu Ming boarded the plane that Erica had arranged for him to fly to Japan. In the first-class cabin, Wu Ming sat on the sofa. Across the table, Erica and Liliana sat across from Wu Ming. I have to say, it's a blessing to have Erica here, Wu Ming said comfortably as he looked at the scenery outside the window. Wu Ming said. Although I don't want to admit it, Erica is still the best in this situation, Liliana said with a slightly rosy face. Although I feel that you're saying the same thing about me, I, Erica Brantery, will accept your compliments. Erica had a proud expression. I hate it when you're like this. You're like a vixen who stole meat. Liliana looked at Erica with resentment. Please call this the pride of a proud lioness. Seeing the two of them at each other's throats again, Wu Ming smiled. Wu Ming could not help but recall what Karen and Yali Anna had said. You two have a good relationship, Wu Ming said. Who has a good relationship with her? Even the king can't judge his own knight as he wishes, Liliana retorted with a slightly red face. What are you talking about, Lily? We're very close friends. Erica leaned toward Liliana with a joyful expression. You, why you, don't come over. You rascal. Erica became even more excited and instantly hugged Liliana. Let's be intimate, Lily, wah. Just as Erica and Liliana were fooling around, Wu Ming sensed that something was amiss and frowned. When Erica saw this, she gave up on fooling around with Liliana and looked at the frowning Wu Ming. What's wrong, Wu Ming? Did something happen? Wu Ming stood up and opened the door to the cabin. Erica and Liliana immediately followed him. After exiting, the two of them saw Wu Ming using his holy aura. Its effect was to make everyone on the plane fall into a deep sleep. Then, Wu Ming took off the golden dragon horn on his head and gave it to Erica. I've temporarily controlled the entire plane with my magic. Go to the captain's room immediately. She's my subordinate god. Kalas will tell you how to control the plane. After controlling the plane, fly according to the route provided by Kalas. Miss Erica, Miss Liliana, nice to meet you. As a versatile magic accessory, Kalas' database contained all the methods to use modern machinery. This was something that Kalas herself had requested, and it seemed that Kalas was more interested in these things. Nice to meet you, Liliana replied politely. Erica nodded and looked at Wu Ming. Is there a new god of disobedience? Well, and it's the god of steel. It seems that I triggered it, Wu Ming said carefully. It was just like the heroic spirit summoning in the M-Moon world, which required a holy relic to summon a specific heroic spirit. The same was true for the appearance of the god of disobedience in this world. Wu Ming's divinity as draconic snake attracted the god of steel. It seems that I have to cast some concealment magic on myself in the future. Otherwise, it would be too conspicuous for a god of disobedience to appear in a place. Wu Ming, Sama, you have to be careful. The god of steel has a restraining effect on you. You must not be careless. Liliana looked at Wu Ming seriously. I know. Although I'm the god of disobedience, I'm not belligerent. If I can't win, I'll still run. After that, Wu Ming, who walked to the cabin door, opened it, and flew out of the cabin. Let's hurry to the captain's room. Liliana nodded, and then the two of them went to the captain's room. Outside the whole plane was stuck in time, and Wu Ming used magic to control it to float in the sky. Compared to being a magician, Wu Ming preferred to be a fighter. That was why Wu Ming had been using all sorts of methods to fly, including magic and items. However, people will also improve. Wu Ming once tried to fly with magic wrapped around his whole body. Although it was a bit awkward, it was still acceptable. Now, Wu Ming was flying in that way. After noticing that the plane, which had lost control, regained power, Wu Ming removed the outer layer of magic that made the plane stagnate, and the plane began to fly again. After the plane was almost gone, Wu Ming turned his head and looked somewhere in the clouds. I'm the strongest, to catch all the victors. Humans and demons, all enemies, to defeat all hostile people. So, I'll break all the enemies in front of me. After using the magic-activated spirit of speech, Wu Ming's eyes were full of fighting spirit. It's time to come out. Don't let me think that you're afraid of me, unknown god of steel, Wu Ming provoked. And just as expected, the god of steel spoke at once at those words. You really dare to say that, a mere dragon snake, see if I don't pull out your tendons. A rather delicate voice was heard. As the voice finished speaking, a pillar of fire flew out from the clouds and shot toward Wu Ming. I will deny the sky, deny the earth, the storm destroys everything, the shower covers everything, I will make everything in the world bow down to me with this supreme divine power. As the spirit of speech chanted, on the stone plate in Wu Ming's heart, the long needle pointed to the direction of 4 o'clock, and the stone plate that was engraved with a storm lit up. Wu Ming raised his hand, and a strong storm burst out from Wu Ming's hand. With the supply of powerful magic from Wu Ming, the pillar of fire that was heading toward Wu Ming was blown away. The storm that blew away the pillar of fire rushed toward the clouds. Whoosh! The sky was like a picture that was cut open, and the huge clouds were split into two. A fiery red figure flew above the clouds. This guy, your ability to control the wind is the strongest I've ever seen. Wu Ming looked at the figure. Red silk, a golden diamond ring, and a flaming undying wheel. He was dressed in red and had 2 pigtails on his head. He held a fire-tipped spear in his hand, and he was as small as a child. Seeing this scene, Wu Ming narrowed his eyes. Look at your outfit, your real name must be Neza. Hey, it's all my master's fault for giving me so many treasures, it's too easy to recognize me. Neza smiled innocently like a child and touched his head embarrassedly. It couldn't be helped, Neza had too many iconic items. Leaving aside the red armillary sash and the universe ring, there were not many gods who had the wind-fire wheels under his feet. Let's not talk too much. It's not easy to come out, and we even met a foreign dragon snake, let's hurry up and fight. As he spoke, Neza rushed toward Wu Ming with the fire-tipped spear in his hand. After defeating Perseus, Wu Ming faced the god of steel again. Chapter 188. Wu Ming immediately took out the meteor silver and faced Neza, who was rushing over. The storm condensed on the blade of the meteor silver. With Wu Ming's swing, the sword of the storm was swung out heavily. Dong! Neza was sent flying by the pressure of the storm. Ha, fun, really fun. Although Neza was sent flying, he didn't suffer much damage. Instead, he laughed happily. Wu Ming secretly began to think about Neza's background. Neza was an ancient mythical figure in China, the guardian of Taoism. Neza's religion flourished in Taoism and folk beliefs. In Taoism, his titles were Marshal of the Middle Altar, Grand Tutor of Heaven, Illustrious General, and Great God of the Three Altars. Although he was reincarnated as a human as Ling Zhuzi, there was a legend that he killed the son of the Dragon King of the East Sea, abandoned his body, and rebuilt it with a lotus. Rebuilding his body and killing the son of the dragon were undoubtedly in line with the god of steel's metaphor of the steel smelting process and killing snakes and dragons. Moreover, he had a lot of treasures that could deal with many kinds of battles. What a troublesome god, Wu Ming thought. Let's make a deal. How about you return to the mythical realm yourself? I don't want to. It's not easy to come out. I have to have some fun. Neza smiled sweetly at Wu Ming. Dragon snake, take this. After saying that, Neza took off the golden steel ring on his body and threw it at Wu Ming. Feeling the murderous intent from the golden steel ring, Wu Ming held the sword with both hands. The storm on the meteor silver sword instantly weakened, and the meteor silver became faintly transparent. Wu Ming attached the pressure comparable to a top-level storm to the meteor silver sword. While slightly refracting light, the meteor silver also became an extremely sharp high-pressure saw. BZZT. The golden steel ring and the meteor silver collided, and an unusually violent noise was made. I am a conqueror who can defeat 1,000 with 100, 10,000 with 1,000, and 10,000 with 10,000. Now, for me, who is standing on the side of justice, please shine brightly and bestow upon me the divine power of lightning. Once again, the short needle on the stone plate in Wu Ming's heart slid and pointed at 9 o'clock. That was a god standing under the raging thunder. The meteor silver produced a trace of electricity. In an instant, the electricity violently flowed out from the meteor silver and scattered to the surroundings. I am the one who will crush all enemies and enmity between humans and demons. Following the chanting of the enhanced spirit language, the lightning instantly condensed and attached to the meteor silver. Wind blowing, iron striking, fire burning, lightning striking, and water soaking. Under these conditions, steel can become stronger. Cracks appeared on the universe ring. However, excessive exercise will break the steel. Kaka, bang. This universe ring, which had the property of killing snakes and slaying dragons, was shattered by the meteor sacred sword under the support of Wu Ming's storm and thunder incarnations. The universe ring was the most commonly used treasure of Neza. Seeing that his treasure was destroyed, Neza was furious. Although Neza existed as the guardian of Taoism, he also had a violent and unyielding character. In the myths, Neza was brave and fierce, eccentric, and loved to fight and make trouble. He was very aggressive and didn't care about life and death. How dare you damage my treasure? Today, I will pull out your tendons and make a belt. Under these conditions, Neza directly showed 3 heads and 8 arms. This was the 8-armed, 3-headed Dharmakaya. Many people only knew about the 3-headed, 6-armed Neza, but not the 3-headed, 8-armed Neza. 6 arms referred to the 6 hands holding the demon-slaying sword, the demon-slaying knife, the demon-binding rope, the demon-subduing pestle, the embroidered ball, and the fire wheel. The 8-armed Dharmakaya had 4 hands holding the universe ring, the red armillary sash, the golden brick, and the 9 dragons' heavenly fire shield. The remaining 4 hands held a fire-tipped spear, and the other 2 hands held the yin-yang sword. After using the 8-armed, 3-headed Dharmakaya, Neza had a green face and fangs. His hair was like cinnabar, and he looked very fierce. Whether it was the 6-armed, 3-headed Dharmakaya, or the 8-armed, 3-headed Dharmakaya, they were extremely ugly and could not be restored to their original state. In the myths, Neza could freely change between the 8-armed, 3-headed Dharmakaya and an ordinary body because of the art of concealment taught by his master, Tai Zhenren. Dragon Snake's old enemy, take this. Neza shouted in a hoarse voice. Then, he rushed toward Wu Ming with 7 weapons in his hands. The universe ring was replaced by the demon-slaying sword. Good timing. Wu Ming also shouted. Using the storm to increase his speed and the thunder god to increase his reflexes, he used the meteor silver to fight against Neza's 7 weapons. Neza was indeed the guardian of Taoism. With the 7 weapons, he was evenly matched with Wu Ming. I didn't expect a foreign dragon to have such martial arts skills. This is awesome. Neza, who was in the form of a green-faced demon, had gradually forgotten about the destruction of the universe ring. He was immersed in the joy of fighting Wu Ming. Wu Ming dodged the golden brick that Neza threw at him and stopped at the side. The fight is over. Now is the time for the real killer move. If you want to run, now is the time. Wu Ming held the sword with both hands, the tip of the sword pointed upward. Interesting, very interesting. Let me see the prowess of a dragon from a foreign country. Ha ha ha. Neza shouted. With his green face and fangs, the 8 weapons in his hands and feet exploded with powerful magic power. He rushed toward Wuming with Neza. X, silver, meteor silver. The extreme meteor with the storm and thunder collided with the 8 fiery lights. The heat evaporated and affected the surrounding weather. Dark clouds gathered in an instant. Wind howled, rain fell, and lightning flashed. When the meteor silver's light disappeared, Wuming and Neza were already very close to each other. In the end, it was the impact of Neza's 8 weapons that broke through Wuming's meteor silver. But, clatter, the sound of chains sliding could be heard. Damn it. It's a weapon against gods. Neza struggled with his green face and fangs. Wuming's slightly battered figure floated in front of Neza. He reached out a hand, and there was a golden ripple in front of his hand. The golden chains wrapped around Wuming's hand entered the golden ripple in front of him. A few ripples appeared around Neza, and a few heavenly chains extended from them. They bound Neza's body and limbs, restraining him. Wuming had expected that the meteor silver would not work on Neza. It was just an illusion on the surface. Wuming had already asked Enkidu to be prepared. When Neza broke through the meteor silver's light, the chains would immediately bind him. Even if it's a weapon against gods, my fire-tipped spear can break it. Neza said as he prepared to attack with his fire-tipped spear. At this moment, Wuming moved. He moved his hand with the heavenly chains, and a few more ripples appeared. A few golden heavenly chains immediately flew out and bound Neza's weapons, including the wind fire wheels, and the other 8 divine weapons. You're a general now, aren't you, Neza? Wuming said with a smile. Damn it. Neza said viciously. Then, he deactivated his 8-armed, 3-headed avatar. Since I've lost, you can do whatever you want to me. Although Neza was bold and daring since he was born, he was also a man who dared to do what he wanted. He dared to love and hate, and he was soft on the outside but tough on the inside. To him, a loss was a loss. He had no intention of quibbling about it. If you can return to the myth by yourself, I won't have to do anything, Wuming said tiredly. Neza was puzzled. You're really strange. Although I don't know what you are, I can still sense that you're a god slayer. Won't you be able to increase your power if you kill me? This was because Wuming did not have high aspirations for authority. In his opinion, having enough power was enough. Too much power would only lead to drawbacks. It's none of your business. Do you know the myth or not? Wuming stared at Neza fiercely. Neza rolled his eyes as if he had thought of something. Then, he said firmly. I refuse. Wuming shook his head regretfully. Then, goodbye, Neza. Poochie. Chapter 189. Mount Lu, China. Wuming was sitting in a nunnery filled with ancient Huaxia style. This nunnery was not big. It was plain, but it looked very simple. A teacup was placed in front of Wuming. It was filled with fragrant tea. Even though Wuming had never tasted it before, he could tell that the tea was expensive. A young man stood beside Wuming. His name was Lu Yinghua, right? Your master hasn't come out yet? Wuming asked the handsome young man. I'm sorry, Lord Wuming. My master is very particular about etiquette. Plus, my master is an unmarried woman. She will not come out to meet guests before she is dressed. The young man who Wuming called Lu Yinghua was very kind. He answered Wuming's questions in a gentle voice. Fine, I'll wait a little longer. Wuming shook his head helplessly. He picked up the cup of tea in front of him and tasted it again. By the way, can't you sit up and talk? Wuming looked at Lu Yinghua strangely. Wuming said that because Lu Yinghua was kneeling on the ground in a kneeling posture. No, Lord Wuming, you are on the same level as my master. Lu Yinghua will not dare to be presumptuous in front of you. Otherwise, my master will punish me for insulting the king. Do as you wish. Wu Ming gave up. Why did Wu Ming come to Mount Lu in China? It had to be related to the battle between Wu Ming and Neza. Wu Ming's dragon snake attribute attracted the god of disobedience, Neza. At that time, the plane that Wu Ming was on happened to be in China. Wu Ming and Neza fought in China, so it must have attracted the attention of the Chinese arcane masters. When Arcane Master Feng noticed the appearance of a disobedient god, he immediately reported it to the Huaxia god slayer, Wuxia King Luo Hao. According to Wu Ming's understanding, China's Wuxia King, Luo Hao, was one of the only 7 god slayers in the world. He was the leader of China's Wulin Alliance, the leader of China's 5 Hells sect, Jiangnan's Wuxia King, and the pinnacle of martial arts. According to the records, it had been more than 200 years since he killed a god. Marquis Warban and Hierarch Luo Hao were the earliest god slayers and were mortal enemies. Before he killed the god, he was a martial arts genius. He had mastered a large number of martial arts and was good at Qigong. After becoming a god slayer, he created his own ultimate skill, the 12 Flying Phoenix Divine Palms. 30% of the Chinese Fengxian masters obeyed Luo Hao. However, Wu Ming did not know what Luo Hao looked like. Luo Hao had a rule that anyone who saw his appearance had to dig out their own eyes, anyone who heard his voice had to destroy their own ears. As expected of a demon who could be compared to Marquis Warban. Wu Ming thought to himself. Although Wu Ming didn't reject such a person, Wu Ming really didn't want to have any dealings with such a person for the time being. Wu Ming really didn't want to have anything to do with such a person. Alright, it was actually Wu Ming who was getting impatient. Originally, after Wu Ming killed Neza, Luo Hao's direct disciple, the handsome young man, Lu Yinghua, who was lying on the ground, came to Wu Ming. Wu Ming still remembered Lu Yinghua's speech at that time. The disobedient king of heaven and earth will live as long as the heavens and earth and will never be destroyed. Your might is infinite, your wisdom and mercy will shine across the world. Stop right there, Wu Ming immediately interrupted him. Then, after a self-introduction, Lu Yinghua brought Wu Ming to Mount Lu. Wu Ming did not want to come, but Lu Yinghua said, "My master wants to see you." Wu Ming followed Lu Yinghua here with the thought that since he was causing trouble in someone else's territory, he should at least meet the master. When is that cult master Luo Hao going to come? Just as Wu Ming was complaining in his heart, Lu Yinghua suddenly shouted somewhere in front of him. The wise and brave sacred cult master's famous name will live as long as the heavens and earth and will never be destroyed. Your might is infinite, your wisdom and mercy will shine across the world. Disciple Lu Yinghua wishes master a long life. Just as he finished speaking, a beautiful girl of about 17 or 18 years old appeared in front of Lu Yinghua. She had a beautiful face and beautiful black hair that was as black as silk. It was braided into 3 braids. The girl was wearing a white Han Chinese dress that was similar to a Qi-style uniform. She put on a green blouse with long sleeves and a long skirt, and an elegant lower garment that looked like a long skirt. Because it was a right-style dress, it looked a little like a kimono. It was hard to imagine that cult master Luo Hao, who had lived for over 200 years, would actually be such a beautiful and tender girl. He's just like a master. Wu Ming thought of Skaha. The moment she came, the girl opened her mouth. Even though she had lived for over 200 years, Luo Hao's voice was still gentle and pleasant to the ears like a 16-year-old girl. I don't remember letting you entertain the king of disobedience who is also a king. However, the girl's next action made Wu Ming's eyes drop. Luo Hao seemed to have seen the slight impatience on Wu Ming's face and thought that her disciple had not taken good care of him. She then sent a palm strike at Lu Yinghua. PFFF. Lu Yinghua screamed miserably as he was sent flying by Luo Hao. Lu Yinghua flew backward and spat out a mouthful of blood. He then collapsed on the ground and lost consciousness. Go to the back of the mountain and reflect on your mistakes for 7 days, Luo Hao said indifferently. The corpse-like Lu Yinghua suddenly got up and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He then knelt on one knee and saluted Luo Hao. Thank you, master. He then ran away. Wu Ming raised his eyebrows and then stretched out his hands to massage his temples. As expected of an older generation god slayer. Just like what the picture said, she's an extremely strange person, just like Marquis Woban. Wu Ming's heart was about to break down. After all, this beautiful and quiet girl was actually a queen who killed without batting an eyelid. This contrast made Wu Ming unable to react. King of disobedience from a foreign country, I welcome you to Huaxia. Luo Hao smiled. I've heard of your deeds. As a god of disobedience, you became a god slayer. Although this is the first time this has happened, it's not unacceptable. I just checked the information sent by the arcane masters. You killed 2 gods of disobedience in Italy's Sardinia and defeated the King of Swords. You defeated my old enemy, Woban, in England. Then you killed Perseus in Naples. And just now, you killed our mythical Neza. From your performance, I can see that you've chosen to protect humans instead of disobeying them. This qualifies you to be a king. But before Wu Ming could say anything, Luo Hao's tone changed. You attracted a god slayer in Huaxia and killed him. This is a little too disrespectful of me. Wu Ming looked at Luo Hao strangely. Then, Wu Ming spoke. Then, do you want to fight? Boom, it was a sunny day, but suddenly there was a muffled thunder outside. Well, it was Wu Ming's thunder god incarnation. Then let me experience the skills of the king of disobedience from a foreign country. At this moment, Wu Ming only had one thought. Sure enough, god slayers were a bunch of violent maniacs. Chapter 190. In the wilderness, Wu Ming and Luo Hao stood opposite each other. This was Wu Ming's relic, the staff of Anziergen, the 8th level of Nasric's underground tomb, the wilderness. Previously, Wu Ming had said that he had an inherent enchantment and that he wanted to fight inside. At that time, Luo Hao had even mocked Wu Ming for being considerate of the living beings and plants of Mount Lu. Furthermore, it was a taboo for a soldier to go deep into enemy territory alone. Luo Hao naturally wouldn't make such a mistake. However, Wu Ming used one sentence to change Luo Hao's mind. If you're afraid, then forget it. I'm the leader of the sect of 5 purgatories, the king of martial arts in Jiangnan. How could I be afraid of you? With this thought in mind, Luo Hao accepted Wu Ming's suggestion and came to the wilderness of the 8th level of Nasric. Looking at the slim and graceful Luo Hao standing not far away, Wu Ming shook his head with a smile. As expected, the god slayers were all simple-minded people. Whether it was Salvatore, Vauban, or Luo Hao, which one of them was not particularly easy to deal with in some way. King of disobedience, are you laughing at me? Seeing Wu Ming smile, Luo Hao thought that Wu Ming was laughing at her because of her hesitation before entering Wu Ming's inherent enchantment. Wu Ming shook his head. How could that be? Lord Hierarch, I was just thinking that you're also a cute guy. However, this angered Luo Hao once again. You have humiliated me again and again. Even if we are both kings, you cannot blame me for being so presumptuous. Finished speaking, Luo Hao started chanting. War in the south of the city, death in the north of the country, death in the wild does not bury the crow to eat. For my sake, I call the crow, and for the guest hero. This was the power that Luo Hao had seized after killing the 2 Buddhist benevolent kings of Aqua, the secret Buddha king and the Narayan Jianjun king. As Luo Hao chanted, golden particles appeared around her. Luo Hao called this power Vajra divine art, and the sage parliament called it the power. The golden particles attached to Luo Hao's body. In an instant, Luo Hao stomped on the ground, and the ground cracked like a spider web. Luo Hao then rushed towards Wu Ming. Just in time. Wu Ming also used his speech spirit when he saw this. I am the strongest, and I hold all victory in my hands. Be it human or demon, I am a person who can defeat all enemies, and I will defeat any enemy that stands in my way. Giants with unparalleled godly power, please help me. As the words were spoken, the long needle on the stone plate in Wu Ming's heart pointed to 2:00, and the giant stone carving lit up. Wu Ming's entire body emitted a golden light. Similarly, he also shot towards Luo Hao who was charging over. Then, the two of them clashed, one with a fist and the other with a palm. Boom! Their fists collided, and the resulting shockwave shattered the ground around them. Just like the first time, Miko-sama and Luo-hao started attacking each other with their fists and palms, releasing a large amount of mana. Wu-ming retreated, his legs leaving 2 scratches on the ground, leaving an ear-piercing sound. Wu-ming moved the place that was attacked by Luo-hao and grinned. As expected of the king of Wuxia, Luo-hao, your punches and kicks are indeed above mine. That's right, it was obvious that Wu-ming was at a disadvantage in this first round of confrontation. Because Luo-hao had 1-inch punch, the huge palm force was like a picture. Wu-ming's defense was nothing, and the damage was directly transmitted to Wu-ming's internal organs. Although Wu-ming was not seriously injured, the damage was not small. Don't belittle yourself. What I just used is my exclusive 12 Flying Phoenix Divine Palm. You can still move back and forth freely under my attack, your martial arts is enough to see. Although Luo-hao had the upper hand, she also suffered some losses. Wu-ming's fists, which contained the strength of a giant, knocked her down a few times, but Luo-hao's great strength Vajra Divine Art not only increased her strength, but also increased her defense. Therefore, although the giant incarnation with the supreme divine power attacked Luo-hao, because of the strong Vajra Divine Art's defense, Luo-hao only suffered a light injury compared to Wu-ming. Wu-ming smiled arrogantly. Then, let's start the second round. After that, Wu-ming disappeared. Luo-hao's eyes suddenly shrank, and she quickly turned around and attacked somewhere. Boom! Luo-hao was hit hard by Wu-ming. Wu-ming, who lifted his lightning speed, stood in the place where Luo-hao stood before. Wu-ming just used the power of the phoenix. The reason why he didn't chant the spell was because of the short pointer on the stone plate in Wu-ming's heart. Now, Wu-ming understood why he had 2 pointers. The long and short pointers didn't just mean that Wu-ming could use the power of 2 avatars at the same time, these 2 pointers also had other uses. Wu-ming found that as long as the short pointer pointed to the authority, Wu-ming could instantly use it without chanting any spell. But the instant was just like the literal meaning of the picture, only a few short seconds. Just now, on Wu-ming's heart stone plate, the short pointer pointed to the phoenix stone plate. In an instant, the short pointer emitted a golden light, and the phoenix stone plate instantly became super bright. Then, Wu-ming entered the state of lightning speed. Now, the stone short pointer had become red, as if the picture was overloaded. But after a few seconds, the short pointer returned to its original stone color. It can be said that the short pointer can make the avatar instantly burst. Although this power can only be used for a few seconds, in a fight between experts, the outcome can be decided in a breath. And the cooldown time is only a few seconds. To put it simply, the cooldown time of this skill is super short. Before becoming Wu-ming's noble phantasm, there were all kinds of restrictions. Before using it, various conditions must be unlocked. But now, after becoming Wu-ming's noble phantasm's 12 avatars, not only did it have no restrictions, it could be used at will, and its power could be compared to any independent authority. Wu-ming's 12 avatars required chanting, which was a drawback. But with the short pointer's instantaneous burst ability, and the cooldown time was only a few seconds, it could be said that the 12 avatars was already a near-perfect authority. Luo-hao gently removed the force and gracefully landed on the ground. Wiping the blood from the corner of her mouth, Luo-hao smiled. Attacking with speed when I'm at a disadvantage is a wise choice. Wu-ming did not belittle himself just because he attacked Luo-hao. The moment before he attacked Luo-hao, Luo-hao captured his high-speed movement. It can be said that basically, as long as one is a warrior, they can capture high-speed movements, especially people who are fighting on the battlefield. For example, Wu-ming saw Lancelot before. As a military god, Lancelot can naturally capture high-speed moving objects. Neza should also be able to, but that is before he enters the state of 8-armed, 3-headed Dharmakaya. After all, after entering the state of 8-armed, 3-headed Dharmakaya, Neza becomes like a berserker. After thinking for a while, Wuming took out a white holy spear from the golden ripples. He was ready to use the martial arts obtained from another real god slayer to compete with Luo Hao. Leader, please don't blame me for being shameless. After all, I'm good at weapons. Of course I won't blame you. Fists and feet have no eyes. On the battlefield, there is only the means to kill the enemy. There is no such thing as being shameless. After that, Luo Hao's body emitted a golden light, and a golden transparent material similar to gloves wrapped Luo Hao's hands. This was the flexible performance of the Mighty King Kong Divine Art. If the previous Mighty King Kong Divine Art was used as a defense, now it was used as a weapon. The golden particles turned into gloves, which was better suited for hand-to-hand combat. Coming! Wuming shouted and rushed toward Luo Hao with his spear. Chapter 191. Wuming held Yggdrasil in his hand and Luo Hao, who was wearing a gauntlet. Luo Hao continuously used 12 Flying Phoenix Divine Palm, which was extremely powerful. Wuming used the god-killing spear he learned from Skaha, and its power was not weaker than Luo Hao's. The two of them didn't care about their magical power consumption, and the magical power they released was comparable to the magic release skill. Coupled with the fact that both of them were god-slayers, Wuming and Luo Hao could be said to have lost their minds. No, that was not accurate, it should be said that they lost their cool. When the two of them almost calmed down, the two of them found that Wuming's barrier was full of holes. As for Wuming and Luo Hao, it could be said that they were being honest with each other. Their clothes were almost completely tattered. Wuming and Luo Hao both blushed. Luo Hao was a traditional Chinese woman. She quickly turned around to cover her delicate body. As her figure flickered, a new Han Chinese dress was put on Luo Hao's body. Wuming also took out a set of clothes from the golden ripple and put it on. Luo Hao turned around, her slightly red cheeks, and the fluttering silk made Luo Hao look like a fairy, which made Wuming look at her. I didn't expect your spear technique to be so powerful. Judging from your moves, you must have learned from a famous master. Luo Hao said to cover up her embarrassment. Thank you for the compliment, sect leader is indeed the king of Wuxia. Wuming also followed Luo Hao's meaning, ignoring the embarrassment between the two of them just now. My master is Skaha, and I can use swords, spears, and halberds freely. My master asked her to teach me this set of spear technique, and now I have my own rhythm. Of course, learning couldn't just copy without making progress. The reason why the student surpassed the master was that the disciple understood deeper things from what the master taught. Speaking of Skaha, Luo Hao was interested. Could it be that queen of the demonic realm, Skaha, who has killed countless gods? Yes, but my master is best at spear, and I am best at sword. Wuming put Yggdrasil back into the golden ripple and took out meteor silver from it. Luo Hao's eyes narrowed slightly. Could this be the other meteor sword, Silver, that could rival the legendary Excalibur? Yes. Later, seeing that Luo Hao seemed to know a lot about meteor silver, Wuming asked Luo Hao. Sect leader, am I famous? Luo Hao looked at Wuming and fell into silence. After a while, Rosen's looked, and looks, Luo looks, ants, looks. The reason why Wuming asked this question was that he wanted to know what kind of myths were related to him in this world. For some reason, Wuming didn't find any records about himself in the myths and legends of King Arthur. Even if there were, they were all minor details, and the content was not complete. The records about King Arthur and even the records about the Knight Villo were vague. The only thing he found was the official history that was slightly more credible. Wuming and Luo Hao sat opposite each other. Looking at Luo Hao, who was pouring tea for him, Wuming was a little surprised. Looking at it now, Luo Hao looks like a beautiful and quiet girl. It's impossible to connect her with the fierce person who fought so fiercely with me in the 8th layer of the wilderness. For some reason, Luo Hao's attitude toward Wuming changed a little since they came out of the enchantment. Whether it was her tone, attitude, or behavior, it was much more intimate. Please. Luo Hao smiled and placed the teacup in front of Wu Ming. Wu Ming picked up the teacup and took a sip. Then, Wu Ming looked at Luo Hao and waited for her to explain the problem. Luo Hao also poured herself a cup of tea and began to tell the story. Ming, as the god of disobedience, became the god slayer. Because of this, he gained the support of humans and was worshipped as a king. Although Wu Ming wasn't used to Luo Hao calling him Ming, he didn't say anything. Although Ming has always called himself Wu Ming, Ming's real name was revealed during the battle with Woban. Villo their answered, King Arthur's strongest knight, King Arthur's mentor, and a good friend of the great magician Merlin. Wu Ming nodded in his heart. Luo Hao was right. No matter which sentence it was, in some sense, it was correct in this world. But Luo Hao looked at Wu Ming seriously. Wu Ming also looked at Luo Hao's pretty face. Although I don't know why, Ming's words and actions don't resemble ancient people at all. Instead, he's somewhat similar to the mortals of today. Luo Hao picked up the teacup again and took a sip. But without a doubt, Ming has attracted the attention of magicians from all over the world. Luo Hao put down the teacup and continued. Because King Arthur's story isn't true. Someone deliberately adapted it. Adapted it? Wu Ming was surprised. After all, this was a big deal. Yes, but I didn't know much about the details. Wu Ming couldn't help but feel a little regretful when Luo Hao said this. Wu Ming already understood why he was so famous. There was a law in this world. Ancient powerful beings were defined as gods by humans and were bound into myths by human curses. As for new myths made up by humans, they would give birth to new gods. Logically speaking, a god like the Villo with a vague record of the myths shouldn't be able to be summoned. But Wu Ming, who used the Villo as his real name, was summoned. Wu Ming had all the information related to the Villo and the myths, such as weapons and skills. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that they were exactly the same. Many people also suspected that Wu Ming wasn't a Villo, but another god with the title of a Villo. Otherwise, why would he call himself Wu Ming and not a Villo? In short, there was a lot of controversy regarding Wu Ming. As a result, all the information about Wu Ming, about the Villo, had been spread around the world. Even sect leader Luo Hao, who didn't like gossip, knew about Wu Ming. Alright, although it was also because of the information gathering. I don't know the specific situation. In short, Ming is now an existence that everyone knows. After that, Luo Hao picked up the teacup again and began to taste it carefully. Looks like I'll have to ask Alice about this, Wu Ming thought. Thank you, sect leader. Wu Ming thanked Luo Hao. Luo Hao shook her head gently. Just call me Chui Lian. Luo Hao smiled again. Oh. Okay, Chui Lian. Wu Ming smiled awkwardly. Wu Ming now felt that this Wuxia King Luo Hao, who was called a demon, wasn't that difficult to get along with. And it was just that the way Ming and Chui Lian were called was a bit awkward. By the way, I will be going to Japan in a few days. At that time, please don't hesitate to teach me. Since we're done talking, I won't send you off. I'll take my leave first. Luo Hao suddenly interrupted Wu Ming's thoughts. After that, Luo Hao used God's limbs and left. As expected, none of the god slayers are normal. After leaving Lushan, Wu Ming boarded the plane to Japan. Sitting in the private room of the plane, Wu Ming still couldn't forget about Luo Hao. Of course, it didn't mean that Wu Ming fell in love with Luo Hao. She called me over and fought with me when I mentioned it. In the end, she said some strange things to herself. Sigh, Wu Ming supported his chin with his right hand and looked out the window in boredom. Luo Hao actually left Lushan. What is she doing in Japan? He shook his head again and stopped thinking about it. Speaking of which, why didn't Erica and the others call me? A shattered piece of a mobile phone lay quietly on Mount Lu. Chapter 192. At a certain airport in Japan, Wu Ming's plane landed. Wu Ming walked down from the plane. Finally, I'm in Japan, Wu-ming exclaimed. As soon as he got off the plane, a golden dragon horn ornament flew over using an invisibility spell. Wu-ming, who had a connection with it, could naturally sense the distance between him and his relic. The dragon horn flew to Wu-ming's head and settled down. Master. Although Colos's voice was still cold, there was a hint of joy in it. Welcome back, Colos. Wu-ming touched the dragon horn and greeted her happily. Yes, I'm back, Master. My king, are you okay? At this moment, Liliana ran over worriedly from somewhere. Her figure was like a swift and beautiful bird, extremely agile. It's okay, Lily. It's just a god of disobedience. I've sent it back to the myths. Wu-ming shook his head and said with a chuckle. Seeing this, Lily breathed a sigh of relief, then said speechlessly, only you would say that. Wu-ming shrugged his shoulders and rubbed his nose. He didn't say anything. So, Lily, you have to believe in our king. How can a mere god of disobedience be a match for my master, Erica Brantery? Erica's proud voice reached Wu-ming and Liliana's ears. Wu-ming turned his head and looked. It was still golden hair like the sun, like a beautiful lioness. Erica walked over gracefully. Of course I believe in the king. Even if I do, I can't help but worry. You, on the other hand, have been calm since you got off the plane. Don't you know how to worry for our master? Liliana immediately retorted. I knew His Majesty would be fine. This is the tacit understanding between His Majesty and me, Lily. Erica pretended to be shy. You vixen. Liliana's face was red, not knowing whether it was anger or embarrassment. Please call me the beautiful lioness, Erica provoked. All right, Erica, stop bullying Lily. Wu-ming chuckled. Liliana was undoubtedly qualified as a knight, but her heart was quite pure. It could be said that she was the complete opposite of Erica. Both of them. Aya, the two prodigies are really favored by the king. However, I would like to ask the king to leave first. It is not polite to talk with the king here. A rather leisurely voice sounded. Wu-ming looked at the speaker. It was an ordinary-looking man in a suit and glasses. Although he was dressed in a suit, the man always exuded a leisurely aura. However, Wu-ming had a feeling that this was an old fox. No, it should be said that every magician was a sly old fox. Other than those who were brought up by seniors like Liliana, including paladins like Paul Brantley and Princess Alice, all magicians were sly old foxes without exception. Because those who were not old foxes were no longer in this world. The truth was so cruel. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Kaneji Takuma, an agent of the official Japanese state organ, the Historical Compilation Committee. Nice to meet you, Lord King of Disobedience. Mr. Kanzui was one of the people who came to welcome the king after Lily and I came to Japan. I didn't hide anything. Instead, I told him about encountering the god of disobedience on the way and how the king went to hunt it. Erica flipped her hair and said leisurely. Wu-ming nodded. Erica was right. Instead of deceiving him, it was better to tell him the truth directly. It was not that she thought highly of Kaneji Takuma, but the news that Wu-ming killed the god of disobedience would definitely be known by the whole world. Besides, there was no need to deceive a Japanese magician. The History Editing Committee was the official Japanese magic organization that protected Wanraku Yoli. Just call me Wu-ming. Then, I'll have to trouble Mr. Kaneji to lead the way. Wu-ming smiled. In fear and trepidation, Lord Wu-ming, please come with me. Although Kaneji Takuma was very respectful, he still looked casual. Kaneji Takuma led Wu-ming and the others into a car. Kaneji Takuma sat in the driver's seat, smiled apologetically, and then said. Because we know that Lord Wu-ming doesn't like luxury, we only arranged for me and a small car. Please forgive us. I thought this was the Japanese magician's provocation to our lord, Mr. Kaneji. Erica sat in the passenger seat and smiled calmly. How could that be? We have absolutely no intention of disrespecting the king. Please understand. Although he said so and his tone was full of apology, Kanaji Takuma still looked calm and composed. Perhaps this was the reason why the Japanese sent Kanaji Takuma to negotiate with him. Wuming thought so. But he felt that the Japanese seemed to be confident that they could remain unscathed even after offending the God Slayer. As expected, the last king is related to Japan, Wuming thought to himself. At this time, Kanaji Takuma spoke again. We specially arranged a luxurious ancient English building for the king's arrival, and there will be new followers to serve the king later. New followers? Wuming raised his eyebrows. New followers. Erika and Liliana were also a little confused. However, Kanaji Takuma continued as if he didn't see it. Because this is the first time the king, Miss Blountree, and Miss Kranikar came to Japan, we were afraid that the two of you wouldn't be able to take good care of the king, so the higher-up specially arranged new followers to serve the king. Liliana thought about it carefully and found that there was no problem. Erika glanced at Wuming. After Wuming nodded, Erika asked a question. Then, what are the number, gender, and function of the new followers? However, Kanaji Takuma smiled. Don't worry, Miss Blountree, there are only 2 followers, and they are both women. One of them is someone the king knows. Someone he knows? Erika and Liliana couldn't help but look at Wuming. Erika and Liliana were curious about when Wuming, someone I know? Wuming said with some surprise. Could it be? Wuming muttered as he thought of something. The car stopped in front of a luxurious ancient English mansion. Please come in, I believe the new followers the king knows have arrived. Kanaji Takuma led Wuming and the other 2 into the mansion. A beautiful girl with chestnut-colored hair wearing a white top and green bottom which costume was cleaning the courtyard. As expected, it's you, Wanli Gu Yoli. Wuming said as if he had expected it. Huh? Wanli Gu Yoli was shocked. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.